Hey everybody, welcome to the famed end of season podcast from myself, Samson Folk, and I'm joined by Louis Zatzman. We've done this a few times. Usually they end up going north of 2 hours. This season's version of it may not. It's not as happy a time to talk about. It's the season review, the season in review, let's say, where we discuss the overall impressions and we dive deep, kind of, into as many players as possible. In past years, with like 16 guys, that was easier. We won't be diving deep into DJ Carton and Kier Lewis Jr. It will not be all 30, but there will be lots of Scottie, lots of Gradey, lots of RJ, lots of IQ, and we'll be talking about basically the Raptors season, recapping, reviewing, etc. Lewis, how the hell are you doing?
My man, I'm doing good. I'm doing wonderful. I had a busy time, so my series preview pieces that I've done in great depth for Raptors Republic for the Raptors, I have now shifted to doing that for the Bucks.
Yeah.
I just filed my draft for that first series this morning. Got my edits in tonight, so I'm feeling free as a bird.
Okay, so basically, what I want to ask you now that because your brain is still on basketball, where other people's might have shifted to maybe a different type of basketball, maybe like draft stuff, but that's kind of where I'm headed a
Mm.
little bit. But what I really want to know is many media, many players, the coaches, fans talked about this team as if there were like four acts, and a regular story has three. Um, which act was your favorite to watch of this team?
Okay, I'm gonna rank them from the bottom up.
Sure.
The worst act was the end. It
They
was
didn't stick the landing.
they didn't stick the landing. There wasn't anything to stick. It just the jump evaporated, the floor evaporated, the cameras evaporated. It was just falling at that point. You're just falling through space. The talent, like, they weren't upset about losing. Why should they have been? They were a bunch of guys playing in the NBA for the first time.
Well, I tell you who
The
would have been
905.
really upset about losing after placing a bet on.
I don't we get fined if we say that name? I'm pretty sure there's like just saying the name.
They tweeted, the
Is
905 tweeted, they're like, we had a record 5 call ups to the NBA this year. And he wasn't on the graphic. They put 4 players on the graphic.
They put 4 players on the graphic. That goes to show. So yeah, the end was tough. Fortunately, I missed a month for happy reasons. Right, had a baby, which was nice. But I didn't enjoy watching what I did watch, even without that month. Then my second least favorite act was the beginning, because we knew what the Raptors were last season. We knew how the talent meshed. We saw them struggle and struggle and struggle to 500 and hate themselves getting to 500. And losing Fred VanVleet and adding Dennis Schroeder and losing Nick Nurse and adding Darko Rajakovic is not going to achieve what a lot of people thought it was going to, including perhaps Masai Ujiri. And when they were trying to win games in the beginning of the season, it was a fool's errand. That I knew for a fool's errand, and was frustrating seeing the team think it would be anything other, like a real errand. They thought they were going to get groceries. They were not going to get groceries. That's an errand, right? Anyway, were there not 3 acts? What's the 4th act? Then the 3rd act is after the trades, when they had Scottie Barnes and shooters.
I thought there was 4 acts.
What's the 4th act?
There's 4 teams that were coached, basically. The one is the
Barnes, Siakam, Quickley.
The spicy barbecue.
Spicy barbecue.
Yeah, spicy barbecue act. Started off
Okay.
blazing.
Fire.
Yeah.
Siakam really, like, with barbecue behind him, Siakam turned into a real hell of a player.
Well, I think
he went hot.
Well, yeah, he went super hot. Basically, what happened, he had, as everybody remarked upon to start the season, like an unbelievable. I think he went 9 for 51 from 3. He had a stretch, but then he had like a month-long stretch where he had more volume and he hit, I think, like maybe like 55% from 3 to bring it even. And the Raptors half-court offense and offense overall from December not even just after like spicy barbecue trade, but from December, Darko had figured out pretty well what he wanted to do. We saw that Scottie, Pascal in particular, were doing really well feasting on smaller wings and less mobile bigs, whether it was by dominating those bigs in bigger spaces or sealing on a lot of the, the screening actions that the Raptors would run off ball or on it, and getting like these big deathly cuts right to the middle. And both of them had efficiency out the wazoo. And OG started shooting, but with that defense was also the famous quiet quitting of, or with that offense, the famous quiet quitting of the defense. That was an act for me. Like December until
So 5 acts.
no. Like I'm saying, like that's part of like spicy barbecue is part of the, like I consider
Yeah.
it like the juiced offense era of this season.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah. Yeah.
phase
Yeah.
to me.
Toronto's juiced offense was like league average. They just
No,
really
it
were
was
not.
not. They were like they had
They
a
were better.
month where they were like I think it was like the sixth best offense, like a full month of basketball.
That's spicy.
Yeah.
That's spicy. And then my favorite though would have been just barbecue. I think after both trades, obviously the Siakam return wasn't what I would have wanted if I were running the Raptors, but as a media member, it was really nice to know the direction, to not have anything hanging over me. Like it's annoying to have to every day check Twitter 1,000 times to be like, oh, did they make the trade? Did they make the trade? What am I going to write about? What am I going to write about? I finally knew what I was writing about. I could see the vision, right? It made sense to me. There were storylines, there were plots.
I
To me,
think
that was the most
that's
exciting part of the season.
that makes sense to me too, is that, we are serving a need. Like we're making this podcast not because we want to talk about the Raptors, but because people will consume this. And people were tired and eventually grew tired of the barbecue era, but they were tired of like the Pascal Siakam discourse. They were tired of watching Pascal. They wanted something new. And also when you have to, especially myself, after every game, talking about Pascal to a live chat of people responding, like the discourse around Pascal, the patience for his game, like all that stuff around him, it grew thin. And then so when, the new team comes in and it seems younger and there's a different way for them to succeed and everything looks different, that all calcifies into like a movement of belief. And injuries
Yep.
robbed us of that. But there's a
Yep.
portion of the season, a portion of the act before all that went away.
And that's the thing of all the acts, that's the one that, if it's a seed, is blooming next season, right? We're not watching Malik Williams next year. We're not watching Pascal Siakam next year. We're not watching quiet quitting on the defense next year. Please. We're watching that portion that was exciting. Hopefully, right? That's the dream.
That's what I think when I think about if I'm selling fans on next season, or if I'm thinking about like what's exciting about next season. It's all the things that were good and unsuccessful from the back end of January through, I guess, the basically all of February. And then we're talking about, a short time where they won a few games in a row. People start to be able to believe in something. And then obviously you get robbed of that. But you don't have to worry about selling people on the endless slog of like 2 ways, 10 days, etc. You can just say, like, hey, that starting lineup, pretty sick, pretty cool. And we
Yep.
might have a couple bench guys who you may be able to bet on. And whether it's 2 draft picks or 3 draft picks, there are young guys coming in besides that. And basically, the most important thing, which is what I want to talk about. And the reason we're not doing this live is because they're typically so long and everything will be timestamped. So the players and the topics will be timestamped. The biggest thing, Scottie Barnes, all star, third year. It's pretty rare for a third year player to make the All-Star game. I know Paolo did it in his second season. I know there's like lots of conversation, but Scottie, an unbelievable accomplishment, an unbelievable year. He now bears the same scar that I do on his left hand for it. But the big takeaway from Scottie's season, let's start there.
I think he had 3 areas to improve on coming into the year. Major, like broad, not micro skills, like broad. I think his shooting needed a lot of work. Teams were really laying off him. His initiation was poor. He couldn't create for himself. He wasn't building those advantages that he could then use to sort of dish elsewhere. And defensively, he, despite showing flashes at times, was getting lost. He was poor at the point of attack. He would get upright, stuff like that. I think all three of those improved by significant larger margins than even the most optimistic viewer could have expected. It was wild to the extent to which each of those three in turn became at least a passable portion of his portfolio, if not a strength.
Let's drill down. Which do you want to start with? Which of those three?
I think initiation's
Sure.
the most important. Yeah.
Get us there.
What did you see?
Take me. Okay, I'll take you there, Papa Bear. So the biggest thing is what I wanted to do in looking at all of his tape during last summer and focusing on work that kind of tried to project what he was good at. I looked at a guy who really struggled in the pick and roll. I looked at the guy who struggled in so many forms of initiation. And basically, what was making that difficult was his inability to beat switches last season and his inability to run traditional or normative plays with a handle that is not as good as like guards necessarily, and a jumper that would create different defensive responses than the usual ones that would create advantages. And the big thing was that he was able to, with a jump shot, with a more functional handle, and a willingness to rescreen, a willingness to attack switches more quickly, and a willingness to take a wider variety of shots around the floor, created a wider expected outcome that defenses had to account for, so that their response to Scottie Barnes was not as formulaic in picking on his weaknesses. He made his weaknesses better. It's okay on a basketball court to make something that's weak become mediocre, and then from mediocre to average, and then average to good. Like, that's great progression. We've seen players do that, but he made some jumps, particularly with the pull-up jumper early on, particularly with his catch and shoot jumper early on, to just all the space that was granted to him, to the tune of, for a large part of the season, almost 6 attempts a game, just firing away from three. I think that's fantastic. I think that's such a big jump that he was able to make, and that affected the way he was able to attack with downhill dribbles. That also is something that it was really important and imperative for the Raptors to make sure, like, hey, Scottie Barnes is the future of the team. We have to be really intentional about how we use him. So he was weaponized as an on-ball player. And then also Darko's offense is going to create points per possession, efficient looks, just by proxy of what they're running for off-ball players too. And there was a lot of high-low action that he got to benefit from as a passer and as a scorer. I think that's the big thing.
He created a wider area of responses. I love that. That was great. Caitlin Cooper wrote about shooting as a function. Hold on. Is mediocre worse than average? To me, those mean the same thing.
Mediocre's worse than average, yeah.
Wow, you learned something new. Okay, Caitlin Cooper wrote about shooting as a function of defensive treatment.
Yes.
Not your percentage, and how that impacts the benefit to the offense much more than the actual percentage. I think the way defenses treated Barnes as a shooter changed throughout the year.
They did.
He was drawing much more space on closeouts. It went from short closeouts permanently to rarely. Like a big change. He still has the same preferences. He still wants to bully drive, where he'll turn his back midway through the drive, slow up, see the court, turn into a post-up if he has to, right? He still wants to step back a lot and launch sort of a contested jumper out of pick and rolls. He's still looking to pass, not to score. Like, his preferences have not changed, but his ability to succeed when he's not using those preferences is really where he took amazing growth. And to me,
the step that
one
Ben
of the
Simmons
biggest
never
things,
took, by the way.
That's right. Right. Ben Simmons was always just going to do it
Preference
the
is
way he
guy.
wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what
The
the
biggest
NBA is
thing-
all about. Sorry, I was trying to fill space because you were drinking coffee. I was going to try and time it up,
It was too bad. You couldn't get it past me. No, but what I was so impressed with, or what I think leaves a lot of space for future growth, is the actual micro skills that allow someone to succeed in isolation or in pick and roll. I don't think took the biggest jumps. I think a lot of his pick and roll success came from reading the floor really well. Like, he is a masterful reader of what's going on around him. I don't think his handle actually took as big a jump as his court awareness did.
Can we
Right? I don't think
quibble?
his quibble.
Let's quibble. So I think that his handle got better, and you'll be able to look this up in the Lewis stats, just based on how often he was
You can
getting.
just say look it up.
Yeah, how often he was getting a certain response. I think the percentages changed, and I think the types of responses you get, whether it's, soft coverage, switch, hedge, drop, whatever we're looking for, the type of response that a defense gives affords certain reads on the court. And if Scottie was facing a lower percentage of switches this year, that means that teams were flattening out more regularly, which means there was less opportunity for him to play make against moving defenses because they kept it flat at the point of attack. With a bit more aggressive handle and a willingness to kind of like turn it down a little bit more quickly downhill, and getting places on the court is an affectation of your handle. You have to be able to convey yourself places. That kind of stuff I think is really important. And I leave myself to the whim of the Lewis stats to see how that comes around, quite frankly. But what
You
I'm
can
waiting
just
to
say stats.
see, I like calling them Lewis stats, but what I'm waiting to see really is where he gets a vast array of coverages rather than just the one, which was the switch or the push switch that he saw so much of last year. And when he gets defenses in motion, because the push switch or the switch means that downhill momentum is not as easy to come by. You're flattening out up top. If he doesn't get that as a, by proxy of an improved handle, a willingness to like reject a screen, to rescreen, to shoot over top, all this kind of stuff, you're going to get him downhill more often. And the big thing, when Scottie's going downhill, it was the quote that was like the rallying cry at the start of the year. Darko used it as a means to describe closing out against Scottie, but if you have to close out against Scottie Barnes, God help you, was the quote, I believe. And so a function of these small progressions create different defensive looks for him that he can eat by the bowlful. Subway ad for him, Bowlway or whatever it is. He can get to those spots on the court where he's so much more dangerous as a playmaker and a scorer. He just got like locked out. Like, Fallout New Vegas. I don't know if you ever played it, but some people will
I've
have.
never.
Basically, it's an open map. You can go anywhere, but the game designers, they put this insanely difficult to kill monsters, death claws, on the route that is the shortcut, and they're like, do you really think you can make it? Because we don't think you can make it. You can, like, that's what they were doing to Scottie. They were taking away the
Yeah.
shortcut to Vegas. He's had to go the long way around. That's where I'm at.
You were right. So he saw a lot more drop, went out by, a few percentage points every year from rookie to sophomore to junior. He saw a lot less switch.
Let's
So he
go!
actually saw more drop than switch. He even saw a non-zero amount of blitz this year.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I'll concede that quibble.
I was putting myself out there because I don't have the Lewis stats, so I couldn't look.
You can just say stats, dog.
The stats. Go ahead.
So here's my question.
Yes.
So that covers Barnes' initiation. We talked about his shooting. Do you think his inability to sort of mind meld with Immanuel Quickley right off the bat? And I know we're going to get into Quickley later on, but just it's because what we described seems like a player, in Barnes' progressions this year, seemed like a player who would succeed with fair relative ease alongside a guy like Quickley. Do you think that inability to do it right away is just a matter of time, chemistry, some progression together, or is there actually something going on in the skill sets that gives some friction in like the setting the slides over one another.
I think it is a skill set thing for Immanuel, and it's a mindset thing for Scottie. Emmanuel, because he is a little bit more limited as a dribble drive guy than some star guards, because his pull isn't as quick as other elite shooters, he needs a big man who is more interested in servicing Quickley's scoring, Quickley's space. Then it's
Yeah.
more important for him to have a big man who wants to service Quickley's game than it is to have like the ultimate talented big man. Who is the ultimate talented big man? Scottie Barnes. Is Scottie Barnes necessarily super interested in being like an Isaiah Hartenstein and just carving out big gobs of space for Quickley to work in? Not really. And is it Scottie's fault that he isn't the biggest grinder, Steven Adams type of screener? No, he does a million other things. He averaged 28 and 6 this season. He was an all-star in his third year. He was one of the best backline sweepers in the NBA. But that is that's the friction between that, is that Scottie is not a lunch pail big looking to create room for Quickley. He wants to play off of Quickley and Quickley to play off of him. Whereas Quickley was at his best when he was running a bench unit and had Hartenstein like, I'm the main driver of success here. Let me go get mine. And their ability to like synergize, that ranks supreme for next year, I think. And in the future, quite frankly.
Fortunately, Toronto had that guy, right? Jakob Poeltl made space for Quickley. Like some of my favorite highlights for Quickley was when Poeltl just smashed a guy, often off-ball cuts. I know we both went wild for his redirect cut where he sort of improvised sort of a jet out the other direction, and Poeltl just smashed a guy and he hit that triple. Toronto has that guy, right? And there's a framework for that in Milwaukee. Sorry, I just have the Bucks on the brain right now. But Giannis has never been the best on like screener, right? Brook Lopez is amazing at that. And so they have a lot of options. They can go 1-4, 1-5, 4-5. There's a lot of different ways they can initiate. And just because you have a point guard and a forward who are the two best players on your team doesn't mean they have to be the two best in the same action, right? The Bucks won a championship where Drew Holiday and Giannis Antetokounmpo were their leading offensive initiators. I wanted to frame it correctly so Middleton didn't get. But leading offensive initiators, even though they didn't run the most actions together, right, that year. And so there's that can work, right? That can work.
It's skill sets do not equal players. You can look at Giannis and say, why aren't you Giannis when you're Giannis? And why aren't you Anthony Davis when you're in the pick and roll? Because similar measurables and catch radius and, explosiveness. But that's not what it is. You have to implement skill sets.
Yeah.
And skill sets or player outcomes change based on like the identity of the player, what they try to do. And Scottie, I want to be clear here. I'm not blaming Scottie for this. Scottie is not yet gotten into his like, I'm Sabonis or Draymond bag. I like will be the rising tide because of how willing I am to like muck it up and just open up these big, gobs of space. He is the unbelievable transition motivator. He is a half court scorer now. He is a guy who wants to get downhill with the ball in his hand, and a guy who, when he's getting like, if they go a small big screen and he gets a seal, he's going to eat. Like he's going to punish guys. That's what he's focused on right now. I hope that, the guys talked about going to Miami in the offseason. They talked about getting work in together. I hope that that is something that they both can kind of compromise on. And honestly, this might be more of a Scottie thing because it is like mindset is a little bit easier than skill set. I think Quickley, the things he struggles with, he'll probably not be elite at over the course of his career. So Scottie can do more of the heavy lifting there. But again, Scottie does a lot of heavy lifting. Go ahead.
And the Raptors are used to having forwards who don't become those, every like grunt workers. Siakam never did. For all of Siakam's skills, he was not a good screener.
Nope.
Like he just never got good at that. A lot of star forwards don't do that. So that's normal for Barnes. And he's actually better as a screener than probably Siakam is at this point.
Oh, I think that's by some
I actually
measure.
think he improved a measurable amount, even though he's not.
It's just not Hartenstein. That's the big thing is like Quickley came from a context where people thought like Hartenstein is like, he's very underrated, quite frankly. And Quickley was coming from a context that was very friendly to him. And I know
Yeah.
it wasn't as much usage as he wanted, but the context was still nice. And it changed when he got to, but again, Jakob helped a lot. And then obviously things changed with the Raptors front court situation. Any other Scottie things? Basically, I'll say this for the jumper. I think that his pickup point got higher. I think that the transfer from the bottom half to the top half got cleaner. There's less truncation from one point to the other. And I think it's a shorter stroke overall, which helps him rely on his, in my opinion, elite touch. And the reason why I think his touch is elite is because he has unconscionable from when it comes to like touch shots around the rim and in the short mid range, through a varied amount of releases, contact into him, different gathers with his feet, going up with his shoulder perpendicular to the rim. He's always able to find like the bottom of the bucket, and getting a shorter stroke means that he's able to more expeditiously get the ball to the rim. Less room for error, less points of failure. Do you want to talk about defense?
Yeah, about that finishing, I wrote a piece in his sophomore year where I was like, "Oh, here's all the crazy finishes he has." He still hasn't had that year where he's like 70% from within 5 feet, but he's gonna have a year where
his difficulty
he's not
is
gonna
too
match
high.
Zion or Giannis on frequency, but he's gonna make everything eventually.
I just think his difficulty is too high. Like Fred VanVleet
For
probably.
now,
Yeah. Well, geez. I want to go look at Fred's rim finishing this year, just for some odd reason. I want to see that because I want to. Okay, he's 49% for. But I thought Fred, he started out okay, and then I was gonna make the like De'Aaron Fox comp where De'Aaron, the more difficult they got, the lower the percentages, but the rim pressure overall is just like absolutely imperative. Scottie, insane amount of stocks per game, was one of, in my opinion, the best backline sweepers in the NBA. Takes home 1.5 blocks, 1.3 steals, which is an absurdity. He was, by the catch-all statistics, liked his defense. The eye test people, I don't know, everyone goes to different people for eye test. For some people, I'm an eye test guy.
go to you, go to me.
For some people, Lewis is an eye test guy. Some people are waiting for Nikias or Steve Jones to comment on it. Everybody who is an eye test guy said, I like it. The numbers liked it. He took an immense step defensively, became the no doubt best defensive player on the roster, which once OG was gone, which is no small thing with Jakob Poeltl there as well. He deserves like a lot of flowers for what he did on that end, and did it while maintaining a step up in offensive usage, just like a mammoth year on that end. Any thoughts?
Defense was incredible, and not to mention the defensive rebounding.
Yes.
He would jump down from the rafters in clutch time, man. Like, his defense, right back on track from where he was supposed to be as a prospect. Really, really, really trustworthy.
This is, if anybody, PD, he's no longer in the public. Like, you can't consume PD's work anymore. It's been purchased, and like he does work privately and all that kind of stuff. But we did the podcast after Scottie got drafted, and he was like, I've watched a lot of Scottie. I don't see Scottie as like a stopper at the point of attack. He's a big playmaker in big spaces. Put him at the back of the defense as that backline sweeper role and like get after it. And the Raptors, I thought, had miscast him for so long. Part of that is roster
Yep.
construction, but part of that is like also Scottie, how in his comments objectively, and what like Nick has relayed in the past, what Scottie has said to him, Scottie is not a guy who was like, I'm the backline sweeper. He was a guy who was like, I'm at the point of attack. And so the Raptors, I think, capitulated on that too often. And once he found himself in the backline sweeper role, I think the big problems that he was facing defensively, a lot of them got mitigated, and the natural things that he's so good at, the elite second jump, which how does that manifest in on-ball defense? It doesn't really.
Yeah.
The difficulty navigating screens because he's a huge mountain of a man. Those guys, except for Paul George, always have trouble navigating screens. the elite second jump for rebounding, second time shot contest, the big long legs, and using your sense of like how the play is developing to meet guys and track them to the rim, and to sit back in passing lanes and make those reads as well, using your size, using your length, being an effective defender that way. He just leans into what he's good at. And then in a pinch, switch out on a guy and like chop those feet, make it happen. But mostly,
Got better.
lean on that backline sweeper role is immense. Unbelievable.
Darko did say in his season-ending press conference that Scottie wants to take that best matchup. So it's still, but
Don't
they
let
found
him.
where it works.
He became like, if he plays the full season on a good team, you saw a guy go who, in my mind, the eye test was not very strong in that role. The numbers didn't really like him in that role. He immediately jumps into like big time. Everyone saying, yes, we love it. Coaches like it. Analysts like it. Other players start talking about it. The numbers are losing their mind over him. It would be, I think, a little bit nonsensical to like capitulate on like, you're an on-ball guy. Guys can want things.
Yes.
If you make the jump from middling defender by all metrics and all eye test to, if you play the full season on a team that is of any consequence, you're an all defense player. Just like, hey man, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's my stance, quite frankly.
And the Raptors, like the modern NBA, you switch so much, you move around so much. Like in the course of a season, you're going to get a lot of possessions guarding the ball. Like there's no shortage. You and I, we love basketball. I don't get to play basketball that much. This guy, he's going to play 5,000 possessions of on-ball defense given practice and game. Like even backline sweepers get their chance to guard dudes dribbling around and shooting. There's no shortage
Jaren
of
Jackson
basketball in his
Jr.
life.
won a Defensive Player of the Year, as everyone saying he was the big, like, genre-bending four who was the backline sweeper instead of Adams.
Yep.
And even he did a ton of switching out above the break, and Scottie will continue to do that. But I think people do still want to lean into that 1 through 5 thing, but it's like 1 through 5 is just words, man. But nothing about Scottie's defense this season was words. It's just cold, hard impact. Do you want to leave? We did 22 minutes on Scottie. You want to take that jump?
Yeah, and I feel like we're going to say his name a lot more in reference to everybody else. So, yeah, I'm happy to.
He is the type of player who leaves an indelible mark on everyone who plays with him. So, for anybody listening, we won't be discussing Pascal and OG and Dennis and all that kind of stuff. I think in passing we will discuss it, but it's just the season review is also gets exciting because you think about the positive things we say about the players who in a preview sort of way, right? But of course we will re-up.
You got to be on the team.
Yeah, you got to be on the team. Do you want to? Who do you want to talk about next? Who is most? Let's on your exciting chart.
Okay, so this is where I think you and I would differ, right? I think you would say RJ and I would say Quickley.
No, I'd still say Quickley.
Okay, we both agree on Quickley.
You know what's kind of funny? We used to be like they agree guys, but now we never agree.
We disagree in the margins.
We love margins, though.
I'm just a pile of margins. I'm not a human. I'm just a bunch of margins strung together with a smile.
When do you think you get to like the sheriff? Like, well, that is a very linear reading of the situation, sir. Time flattens a man. When do you think you get to that point? When will time flatten
I think when both my kids are toddlers. Having one refuse to brush his teeth for 20 minutes will do something to a man.
Yeah.
Having two do that at the same time, I think I'm going to just become Rust Cole.
I wonder if when that happens, if I try and like in a podcast delineate between passing and playmaking, I'm like, well, no, we just have to talk about passing skill. You might shudder. Like that might be a terrible thing. Immanuel Quickley. Let's talk about Immanuel Quickley. Some people, not me, but I still like Immanuel very much. But some people, when he got traded to the Raptors, shouted from the heavens, the star guard has arrived. Now, while I
Yep.
disagree with that, I don't live in the binary where if you're not a star, hit the road, hit the showers. I like Immanuel a lot. I'm looking forward to how he looks when he gets to play in a more set defense. And I wonder how the Raptors shape the roster around Immanuel. I'm interested in how the Raptors look for players who they might take on their contracts, who have become unsexy elsewhere to gain extra draft capital if they do that, or I wonder how they spend their money in free agency if it leans towards one end of the floor. I wonder who they draft. All of that will be with Trevon next week. We're talking about Immanuel Quickley now. As a Raptor, 18.6 points per game, 6.8 assists per game, 4.8 rebounds, 84% from the free throw line, 45% inside the arc, 39%. Crazy little fun little stat here. 0.395% with both the Raptors and the Knicks. And overall, 45% with the Knicks, 42% from the floor with the Raptors. What is your broad strokes takeaway from the Raptors guard of the future, or at least one of them?
I was very impressed with Quickley's season. I think his skill set is incredibly exciting. Maybe even more exciting than it is beneficial. It's just nice to have a guy who's like, wow, that's fun to watch. You know, I think there's definite weak points we're going to hit on, but broad strokes. If you just define what the Raptors needed on the offensive end, they needed pull-up shooting, they needed catch and shoot shooting, they needed movement, cutting, they needed someone to move the
Gravity.
chains with screening and just like move the possession along into the next, who plays hard, who will drive with pace. They got that guy. Like he brings the skills across the board that the Raptors needed on the team. Now, are they the skills that are good enough to punch the Raptors through the next ceiling and the one after that? The driving especially is like he is fast, but that doesn't turn into a whole lot. He still hasn't learned certain types of passes, but really encouraged with what I saw. Like super promising player. How about yourself?
So something really interesting happened when he first came to the Raptors, where he was terrible at the rim. He was overextending himself.
Yeah,
He was taking shots like that last step was coming farther and farther away. And basically, in general, he was shooting like 40% at the rim. He finished the season as a Raptor shooting 70% at the rim per cleaning the glass. Very impressive, first of all. And I wrote this big piece on it because it was something that I noticed happening. He was taking more dribbles in the paint. He had
yeah,
he had incorporated a second speed. And similar to Tyrese Maxey, who is oddly enough a one speed player, it's not, being a one speed player is not a good thing, but you can survive that if you have ungodly touch and speed like Tyrese Maxey. Quickley is slower than Maxey. Quickley maybe doesn't have the same level of touch, but it might be close. But Quickley also doesn't play with Joel Embiid and Quickley hasn't played with those types of guys. The big change, obviously, is that he started playing at that second speed because that second speed was
yeah,
absolutely imperative for him to access different points of the floor to remain under control. And with the Knicks, he shot, as you mentioned in your big piece, 59% on floaters to that point, right? Massive number. He only shot 35% as a Raptor in the short mid range. He wasn't reliant on the floater because the floater was a full speed movement for him. Early pickup, put the ball down. The reason why his assist percentage went up with the Raptors is on the Raptors, it's a little bit easier to get assists by proxy of their style of play, yes. And especially, in comparison to the Knicks. But he became a guy who was far better at playmaking from the middle of the floor to the rim and out beyond the 3-point line, and that also meant that he became a much better driver overall. It was the change in play style, not the change in skill set, that brought on this
yeah.
positive, regression for him. I think that was the biggest change so far this season. I'm still working on and talking to all the shot doctors I know about the speed with which he pulls up. That'll be a summer project thing. But Immanuel offensively, I think at the end of it all, impressed me this season a little bit more than I expected to be impressed.
Yeah, there were plays that stood out to me as harbingers
Harbinger,
of harbinger of
Harbinger.
future improvement.
Sure.
He nashed a drive, which I don't know if I'd seen from him before,
Yep.
where he was surveying the court and the floater was a last option. He turned around from 4 feet, the pass wasn't there, popped it in. He often takes that floater, wrong foots himself before the defense even steps up. He's not looking to spray out to the corners. He's not looking to sort of get himself thin on the gather to go up left or right. He's just, guys, he's far away. I'll take the floater. I want the floater to be a last option because even the best floaters, they shoot 50% on a floater. The best guys, 55%. You can do better than that. And if you're surveying the court, you're slowing down, you're keeping the defense rooted, right? If you're looking at the corners, if the big gets active, you have tons of space to play in. If the defense stands still, if they're waiting to react, that's when you have time to pop the floater. Right? Look at Jalen Brunson's game. No one fits in more deep, like left, right, back, forward, 6 feet from the rim in the entire league than him. No one is able to slow down, move their body around at pace. And that puts defenses into paroxysms, man. They're reacting, they're recovering, and he's just shimmying and shaking on his drive. Quickley obviously isn't that. He's not like a post player on the drive. But the point is he can do more to force reaction from the defense. And that's what, individual play showed me that he can do. I think the passing really improved. I was really impressed with the passing. Most of his assists, his value assists. What is it you called in your assist
high value
work?
High value.
Yeah, his high value assists. Most of them in New York, when I looked at all of them, were because other people look at all the plays. We just don't tell everyone. Most of them were bounce pass to the. I know. Bounce passes
it's
to
called
the
an
roller,
advantage creation
where he has both guys step up. Yeah. Advantage creation. Bounce pass to the roller when both guys stepped up. Just easy lane for that guy. Two steps to right at the rim. He had a lot more variance in where his assists came from with the Raptors.
Yep.
It was really good. And I think you don't think he's going to be a star. I think it's very possible that he puts together a Fred VanVleet year where he's like 23-8 and can just sneak into All-Star once. Like I don't think he's going to be a consistent All-Star.
I have a rebuttal.
He could be a one-time All-Star with the Raptors.
I have a rebuttal. Not only has Fred VanVleet not had a 23-8 year, that's not a Fred VanVleet year.
No. I'm saying that could be. The VanVleet example was just a one-time
when
All-Star.
Fred, similar to this year, Mr. Whitehead released his synergies player impact metric thing. Victor Wembanyama and Fred VanVleet were tied for the most impactful players who aren't in the playoffs. What happens with Fred VanVleet and why the metrics love him so much is because of defense. And I know Raptors fans don't agree, and that's fine. But maybe you agree about this, the all-star version of Fred. He had just this insane backload of defensive value. And we can't, Immanuel Quickley can't be Fred VanVleet type offensive numbers or even a smidge above that, because the chance of him getting to where Fred was, where people loved Fred's defense, every national media in America talked about Fred VanVleet, the gritty defender. He got talked about like that. Immanuel does not get talked about like that, and the numbers don't say that. Immanuel, if he wants to be like an all-star, one-time all-star, those offensive numbers got to go through the roof, man. Yep. That's just what it is.
What do you think about his defense?
I thought it was bad. Yeah. I thought And again, I have a tough time blaming defenders, especially from when Immanuel joined the team. Basically, Immanuel was on a functional team for like 2.5, 3 weeks of the season. Otherwise, everything was hellacious. Like it was not so much of went on. But I thought he struggled immensely at the point of attack. I thought that the hallmarks of his off-ball defense that people talked about correctly in New York, once he got away from the cozy confines of that incubation of like that really strong defense, it became less, punchy for him. And I thought he struggled overall on defense and became a guy that the Raptors, you weren't comfortable knowing that he was sitting across from even not even an elite guard, but a good guard the night of. You felt like that was going to be a bad
Yeah.
situation. So
Yeah.
I didn't think it was good, but I still am happy with Immanuel overall. But the defense, I thought he struggled in a bunch of ways.
So that's one thing for me about Quickley is he brings a lot of skills that the Raptors needed. But if he's your point guard, you kind of need a really special and very specific player as your shooting guard to make the team, optimized with Scottie Barnes as your best player.
Yep. This is team building, baby. You have to have that
Yeah.
guy who papers over everything, and perhaps Scottie is that guy. Like really he might be that guy and he can kind of paper things out over the coming years. But if you don't have that guy, Kyle Lowry was quietly that guy. Everyone's like, "Oh, it works with
Yeah.
DeMar." And the quiet truth was like, Kyle Lowry makes everything work at this point of his career. Immanuel Quickley won't be that type of guard. He is more so like the guy who has to be, he can't drive everything on his own. He is part of
Yeah.
the fit. And the fact that his part of the fit defensively seems to dictate that you don't get to sign a Malik Monk and have the backcourt be short up defensively. You have to sign like a Dylan Brooks and have the backcourt be short up defensively, something like that. You have
Yeah.
to look that way instead of a really exciting way to have that Kentucky backcourt if the Raptors want to throw money around like Malik plus Immanuel. But that's small. That's bad defensively. It brings up heaps and heaps of problems. You have to try and play probably pretty ingenuitive defense. Those are the questions. I will say though, if he makes one All-Star game or more, I'm over the moon. I'm ecstatic. But it's so hard to make All-Star games. De'Aaron Fox didn't make one this year. I mean, come on. It's like
Yeah, that's fair.
incredibly
That's
tough.
fair. It's easier in the East.
Darius Garland
Quickly,
didn't make it this year.
though, yeah, that's true. Quickly, man, like, aside from whether he gets that game or not, really fun. Like, when's the last time the Raptors had a guy who played like that? Can you remember one?
He is singular. Now I'm a bit of a loser because I think
Yeah,
most players are singular and I don't like comps necessarily, but
everyone's singular.
I think that quickly you have to go like even Fred wouldn't pull the same way and Kyle pulled in a different way. Half court pull quickly might be the highest volume guy that we've seen. And that's
Yeah,
fun. It's a sign of the times, of course, but it's fun and he shoots the hell out of it too. Like if Kyle had a 39% season with the Raptors, that would have been nuts, you know? But Immanuel just kind of like sleepwalked into 0.395%. He could have shot it better. So
and he will.
he's a
He's
shooter
going to
of
break
some
40
consequence.
if
Yeah.
he stays with the Raptors a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last thing on quickly, any thoughts about contract? What do you think it sits at?
I'm not the biggest contract guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's below max. I don't think he gets a max,
Oh,
but I think it's going to be closer than people think.
are you thinking like between 28 and 36 per year type deal?
I don't really know the numbers right now. Max is 25%, right? For his
Yeah.
where he's at in his career.
Yeah. 132
Yeah, I
million
think he
is
might
the
break
projected.
he might break 20%.
Yeah. I think he'll get like,
Which, I mean, so go ahead.
I think he'll be like 22% of the cap, if I had to guess.
Yeah. So it's 136, you said?
I think it's 133, the salary cap for next season.
133?
Yeah.
Yeah, if he gets 22%, that's like 30 mil, right?
Yeah.
29.
So we'll
That's a lot
see.
of money.
It is a lot of
Yeah.
money. Like people are ham fisted about, well, RJ makes this, RJ makes that. Man, Quickly starts making that money. Everyone likes to count money, you know? God bless you, Immanuel. Go get the bag. That's, geez. It's like, yeah, RJ 23, just shy of 24 million this year. He makes just shy of 26 next year, 27, 29 and a half. Immanuel could come into next season, big bag. And then Scottie next season, the biggest possible bag with perhaps the incentives kicking in as well that could jump it up to like 28%, depending on how all that goes. But
Yeah.
yeah. Do you want to move on to Star J? Okay, you
Star
start us
J.
off. You start us off with RJ.
So I was not low on him when he came to the Raptors.
No.
You know, a guy who, even though he's inefficient, I'm not the biggest efficiency nut
You gotta
around.
move the
Like,
chains, man. Like
yeah.
you whether it's easy or hard, the ball has to find its way into the basket. You have to be able to run your actions with the defense giving a shit about somebody.
And he ran his actions on a winning team in New York over and over and over. He started since day one, and he just slaughtered. You could chalk 20 points up, and these aren't the Washington Wizards. Like, it's not 20 points to Jordan Poole. I'm not the biggest empty stats guy. I don't think there's such a thing as empty stats. But and I get that he had limitations coming in Toronto, but I was like, you can chalk it up, man. He's an automatic. You know what he's getting. And then not only did we not know what we were getting, he improved across the board. It just the low efficiency became elite efficiency. The shot selection became elite shot selection. The shooting, he hit everything. It was just like,
Can I read
man,
stats?
he
So
reads stats, baby.
cleaning the glass, just to easily convey this stuff, cleaning the glass with the Raptors, just so everyone knows, he was never above average as a points per shot attempt guy in his whole career. With the Raptors, he was 81st percentile. His assist percentage as a forward was 90th percentile. Assist to usage, 79th percentile. As far as accuracy, he had 1 year and 1 year only where a quadrant of the court he was above average. He was above average from three. In his second season, Cleaning the Glass has him at 40%. He was above average. Not only was his effective field goal percentage in the 88th percentile, he outpaced his career best at the rim by 13%. 72% is Raptor, 84th percentile. In the short mid range, he was around where he's always been, 40%. It was 39, 38% the years previous. Long mid range static, but 39% from three. What shots do we want, man? We want you to hit threes, and we want you, the bulldozer that you are, and he really is. His strength creation really got to flourish with the Raptors' motion offense and them trying to clear space. He got more of that one-on-one time to shoulder guys, clear space, finish with his left. He was immense everywhere. His assist percentage went up. I looked at the, advantage assists, all that kind of stuff. He was, I think it was when I looked at it, like 44% as a Raptor as opposed to 33% as a Knick. He was just creating better looks, easier looks, more layups. He was doing it as more of a focal point. He was doing it while his own scoring was more efficient. He took everything that was thrust onto him and he just flourished with it. Unbelievable offensively.
If you look at his drives, or all players in the NBA,
Yeah.
at his frequency and his efficiency, top 20 guy.
Yep.
Like there, the guys that compared to him for driving approximately 18 times 100 possessions, scoring over 1 point per chance. It's you're looking at Devin Booker, Tyler Hero, Franz Wagner, Jamal Murray, DeMar DeRozan. Like, he was not the first class of drivers in the league, right? This isn't like Giannis and Zion and such and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but it is the next class.
Yep.
And everyone knew what he wanted, and he got there anyway. His motor, like the legs, the churning, like the duck underwater legs. As soon as you get contact, he just ducked his way through whatever they wanted. There were so many times where a guy met him on the drive, and he already had a step and a half in him, right? Like, you don't have a lot of footwork left to go. And if someone meets your hips, most guys, it's like, well, it's done now. Your drive is done now. Goodbye. And he's like, well, I still have a half step, so you're just behind me. It was unbelievable.
There's some stuff with Team Canada. Obviously, his heroism with Team Canada early on when he was a teenager, he was massive. And there was a huge factor of that was like he was stronger than the other kids his age. He had the same level of skill, above it in some cases, especially playing against the United States. Like, there's a ton of great players on the floor who went on to the NBA, but he's stronger. You get on that curved drive. You talk about the churn. None of his drives then were getting flattened out. But even more so with the Raptors, like some drives that used to get flattened out second year, third year with the Knicks, those drives he keeps it's trying to make that C. Like, he's bringing it all the way back in. If you want to push him wide of the paint, you want it to be like, an 11-foot push shot or something like that. He's getting you to 8 feet, then his gather, and then he's getting all the way there. Or his last step brings him to 3 feet. And that's why you see the rim percentage. Like, he shot 55% on his drives. He shot 72% at the rim.
Yeah.
It's just like, part of it is that the Raptors are a little bit more clever, Darko, in how they prioritize spacing and also who they positioned in the weak side corner and on the weak side above the break, or if they're having someone flash above the break in concert with RJ's drives to clear out that side, as RJ always drives opposite side, coming from right to left. Like, he's always going to get to the left side. A lot of guys take that right side drive and keep it right, but he's always getting the opposite side. How they prioritized the structure of the offense, good, but just strength creation, he's a bull, man. He gets to spots, and he needed the touch to convert there. And with the Raptors, touch was good, not only at the rim, where so much of the work we talked about is manifesting, but he just shot the ball better. He just shot 39% from 3.
Have you seen Catch Me If You Can?
I tweeted about Catch Me If You Can. Do you know that guy's a total scammer? The FBI is like, this guy...
I saw this tweet.
He lied about everything. Yeah, I've seen it. But
it's not about this guy. It's not about this guy.
Wait, I just need to say it. Like, his scam isn't what happens in the movie. His scam was convincing people that he was a scammer. He flipped it on his face. He was, yeah, okay. Subversive.
But have you seen the movie?
Yes, I've seen it.
2 mice fell into a bucket of cream.
Yeah.
And RJ Barrett is the one who churned it into butter. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Did you know that they did an experiment where mice would die after 15 or 20 minutes if you put them in water and they try and swim, but then they'd realize there was no way out and they'd just die and drown. But if you had taken a mouse that you had done this, and after a certain amount of time, you gave them a little step ladder to get out, then they learned that there might come a way out. They would churn and swim for hours and hours and hours on end. If you taught them to believe that change could come, they would work way harder to just wait to see if the change did. And RJ kept churning until the Raptors traded for him out of New York.
That experiment depresses me, man.
It's pretty tough, yeah. We're all churning.
I'm sorry, I changed your mood. Hopefully
you get butter Hopefully you get cream instead of water. It's tough to churn water into anything. I don't know if
I
there's
hope all
pressure.
those mice got fed butter at the end. So
Let's hope.
RJ's defense.
Not good. I think he's very stiff, and he's not as big as stiff guys often are. That stiffness really helps him stay upright and remain hard charging on offense.
Yeah.
And it makes him very kind of like this navigating things. He doesn't get low around stuff. And when you get stiff up top, it's hard to get really creative with your feet. You know, it's hard to be nimble. So
Yeah.
around screens, he had a lot of trouble. When guys change direction quickly in isolation on him, he has trouble. And he also, on a bad defensive team, he didn't care much for the nuances of off-ball defense. And so he got caught up in a lot of stuff and like would fall asleep. Now, RJ, it's more important for him, I think, than it is for Quickley, because Quickley's proven it. RJ, I really wonder if this team starts competing, if these Raptors start turning the corner, if that attentiveness, and that's what we saw with Gradey over the course of the season, right? Like attentiveness and care can genuinely, and we know this with so many people, can genuinely change defensive outcomes. So many people talk about it that way. RJ has to care more, but he has a tough time competing. The same guys that he bulldozes on offense are the same guys who are quicker than him on defense. And he has a tough time navigating the space they like to play in. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. I don't know what his role should be on defense.
He's a guy you work
Quickley
to hide. Like you try and keep him out of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a role. But like, when you think of, Scottie Barnes, best employed as a backline sweeper, despite having weaknesses. Guys have places where they're best employed. And RJ Barrett, for all of his athletic skills and his, in court awareness on offense, it's like, I just don't know. Do the Raptors want him to be a guard stopper, right? And at the point of attack? Do they want him to be tagging from the weak side and recovering? Do they want him stunting in the middle of the lane? Like, I just don't see where any of these different situations benefits him. Hard, as much fun as barbecue is on offense, really hard to see the defensive fit.
That's the rub. That's the rub.
Yeah.
I don't know the fix, quite frankly. I think it requires a defense. Fit. Yeah. Well, the fix for their fit. I don't know if it's you see like Sacramento is a team that escapes some of their limitations through heavy motion. But still not good. The Pacers are a team that without heavy motion, they're like, we need to keep things simple. They've improved, still not good. And they have a lot of things where you look at it and you say, this is tough. And even they have Andrew Nembhard.
And Naismith. Like, they have actually more defensive personnel than the Raptors have now.
I don't know about that. I might disagree. I think Naismith, has gumption, but he fouls the shit out of everybody.
Strong guy. He's a big, strong guy.
He's a bull. I really like Naismith, by the way. But yeah, I wonder. But yeah, defensively, you have to hope Scottie is like, I'm the defensive player of the year. I'll have a shot at it every year, and I am the salve that cures the Raptors' porous perimeter defense. But then again, perimeter defense is becoming more and more important in the NBA. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
RJ and Quickley, as Raptors, they did not pull their weight defensively, I'm comfortable saying.
There are Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Danny Green. These guys won championships. A lot of championships.
Multiple.
Just by virtue of people underrating their skill sets. You hope the Raptors find a guy like that. A shooting guard who can defend at the point of attack, pick up a guard or a wing, move and hit triples. Like, if you throw KCP, I know everyone loves Caldwell-Pope now. He's like a big it guy. for good reason, right? If the Raptors were to
Nobody
find a
was
guy like
singing
that
his
on a cheapo
praises when he
contract,
couldn't play away games because he was serving time. Nobody liked him when I liked him.
no, I wasn't the first to like him by any means. But if the Raptors got that type of player, Klay Thompson, right? That would solve a lot of problems.
They should get young Klay Thompson. Do their
Just get
best
young Klay Thompson.
if you can. He only needed the 11th overall pick. You got maybe the 6th or higher coming up. Just get Klay. There'll be someone who'll be like, I think
Just draft Klay.
Reed Shepherd could maybe be that guy. Yeah, that situation where it's like, geez, there's a lot of great point guards, and it's really important to have someone to guard the other point guard. And you look at Immanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett, and you say, neither of you are guarding the other really great point guard, or at least doing it well. That's kind of tough. And then Scottie's in the room. He's like, I could guard him, you know.
And the coach is like, no.
Do we want to talk about who do you want to talk about next? Gradey? We're already an hour and 6 minutes in. Good Lord,
Gradey.
man. Yeah, Gradey. Let's talk about Gradey Dick, the star boy for the Raptors. Okay. Big TikTok star, gets drafted. I'm going to describe how his season went. 3 parts. Playing a little bit, and it's not going great, but you can see so much of what will or won't work. And the struggles are immediately there. He's not shooting the ball well, but his motion is really accomplishing stuff for the Raptors. You can see how the way he plays is going to manifest positively for these Raptors. And then on top of that, he's missing shots. But it's the start, and you can just say, young guys miss shots. Easy peasy. No one really cares. People do care, but it's easy to chalk it up to just miss shots. I even go so far as being like, hey, look at how Corey Kispert shot the ball to start his career. And it was very similar. And Corey Kispert, while a much different player than Gradey, he turned out to be just fine as a shooter. Gradey, the second part of the season, what happens? He not only does he fall off the face of the Raptors, but he goes to the 905, and he's really not good in the 905. And then
he can't shoot there.
Yeah, he can't shoot there. He can't dribble there really either. He's not playmaking there. He's not doing much of anything there. And then people start to wonder, not me, though, but people. They start to wonder, like, is this kid a bust? Is this still 19-year-old guy? Is it finished for him? Is it over? Did the Raptors screw it up again? Then he goes on the Joe Rogan TRT workout thing or whatever.
Workout.
Yeah. And he comes back. He's a little more jacked. He's a little more juiced. He's got some beef. And then he enters the rotation again, maybe like January 18th or like maybe January 21st or something like that. And then he shoots 40% through the rest of the season. There's a little bit of playmaking there, but the jump shot comes around. And you can see some of the playmaking. You can see how his gravity is really important. And he finishes the season, in my estimation, quite strong.
There was a stretch, too, I believe in the spicy barbecue era, where he led the team in on-off net rating.
Oh, that's such a scam.
No, hold on. My point is, and to end the season, for as well as he played, he just got devoured. And like his minutes were just, he was getting outscored by a mile.
But just as a moment, spicy barbecue started on the 28th, right? That's when the trade was made, or the 30th? The 30th.
Okay.
He didn't play until the 12th, where he played 12 minutes and was a minus 32. Then he didn't play until the 17th, where he was a plus 24 in 11 minutes, where he had both his threes. And then this was when he re-entered the lineup and had an unbroken, played every game. His 22nd game of the year, the Raptors' 43rd game of the year, against the Knicks. He goes 3-6 from downtown. And then from then on, if Basketball Reference will calculate everything, it won't. He basically averaged like just over 10 points a game, I believe, and shot like 43% from three or something like that. So pretty damn good.
Okay, it was the barbecue. I miss my eras there, but there was a stretch there where he was not getting killed in his minutes. Is really my point, and actually was really helping the Raptors, run up the score a little. And I just think, you said this in summer league. He is the guy that you need to play along good players. He's not going to help bad players. And I think towards the end of the season, he was playing well, but the Raptors were losing games by 30 and he was going minus 40. Like, it was just not good. And I don't think that concerns me at all. Like, the fact that he was winning minutes alongside good players matters way more to me than losing minutes alongside bad players. That was all. I'm not trying to make a case about net rate.
No,
it was just about his value as a type of. I gotta let the dog go.
Yeah. Well, and the most important thing I would say with all of that is that Gradey, whether or not you perceive him to be strong as like a tertiary ball handler, or you're projecting him like the Raptors seem to believe that Gradey might be a guy who can handle some pick and rolls down the stretch.
Yeah.
Like, or in the future, kick the can down the road on that. A guy who will start like playmaking and doing that kind of stuff. These are earnest beliefs that they have. And on top of that, I don't think that we saw that. I'm not convinced of any of that from what I saw with Gradey. What I am convinced of is that I don't care whether good or bad players are around him. He started to hit static shots and he started to hit movement shots. And he took very difficult shots and he hit them, and he took very easy shots and he hit them. And the number one skill Gradey has to have at the NBA level is shooter. That's what makes everything else tenable. He is not, if he can't shoot the ball, he is the least interesting on-ball player of all time. The least interesting on-ball player of all time. If he does shoot the ball, then suddenly he's a very interesting on-ball player. We saw Duncan Robinson become a guy who's like super interesting within 3 dribbles because of his gravity and that he's tall and can make like these check down passes, right? Maybe skip it every once in a while. Gradey has this stuff. He'll be comfortable there. He just has to shoot it to unlock it. And he did. Now he has to get way stronger. If a guy gets a hip on him, not even the chest, if a guy gets a hip on him, they can stonewall his drives. It'll be flattened out. He can't keep that momentum going. But the most that kind of stuff, the body needs work. That'll help him out on defense. That'll help him out everywhere. But the touch as a shooter, immense. So like the stats for when he rejoined, he shot 39% from 3, 45% from the field, 81% from the free throw line, and he averaged 11 points per game. Less passing than I would have expected, less rebounds than I would have expected because of it seems like he has such a great nose for the ball. But on top of that, he finished the ball at the rim really well. He has tremendous touch there.
He's a nose for tip outs, right? No, those don't always turn into rebounds. When he gets stronger and can get 2 hands on the ball, the rebounds will go up. One hand's not always going to inflate your rebound total. So his driving, he was the 6th least efficient driver in the NBA with guys, with 100 or more. Jalen McDaniels was worse. Bruce Brown was just better as a Raptor. He was a lot better as a
I'm
pacer.
getting flashbacks, man. Dig gone.
Shaden Sharp was worse. It's interesting. Malachi Flynn was just a little better. It's like a lot of Raptors. Anyway, the shooting, though, one thing that I saw, he lost a little bit of confidence when he was still in the rotation with the Raptors early in the year before they took him out. He was not taking shots other than totally standstill shots, and he was missing those. And he got some gumption towards that end of the year. He was taking heat check threes without any heat. Like he was taking threes where he would pump fake, guy would close out, and then he'd launch it.
Pound dribble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I like to see. Because shooters, it's like we know he can hit shots now, right? We know he can hit shots. And the volume, like at his size with his movement, he can have crazy volume. Is he going to take him? We
got proof of concept.
We got proof of concept. Yeah. The volume the accuracy, and now the willingness to get up 15 threes. I love it all.
That's true. The 15-3 game. Just let it rip, man. Shoot or shoot. Gun it. And I do Gradey comes off as for his age, and I'm finally at the age now where I can talk about like a 19, 20-year-old as like a young guy or a for his age guy. I'm not 21 for anybody who's wondering.
You're
So he comes off as quite grounded and quite like intentional and quite thoughtful and very confident. That was like there immediately. And he always
Yeah.
spoke to that confidence, but that confidence was definitely not manifesting, as you said, for a little bit of time. And then that gumption. He checks with no heat, etc. 5 boards a game in college. I just, and like with that nose and a little bit more size, I thought it would come. And the playmaking, I mean, it's just like for him to be a playmaker, he had to have such specific things met around the court for him to have playmaking opportunities, especially since he's always on the perimeter. It's just tough. He has to get like empty side, dribble handoff, and both guys jump out. Like that's, or he has to come off of a pin down, both guys jump out, empty side, like check down. Otherwise, how is he creating? That kind of stuff I'm looking forward to seeing. Defensively, if we can make this quick and talk about Jakob soon, I mean, defensively, Gradey struggled immensely, continues to, but you see him get early on plays. I love when players get there early. He doesn't have the body to defend at the NBA level yet. Like it just is what it is. But he has the mind to get there early. And he has the willingness to flail around. So God bless him.
He might be the worst closeout in the NBA.
So what I don't understand really is that they're like he's controlling, like it's like he's chopping feet. Why did they do that?
It's and he
That's
he
what he
just
does in
doesn't
warm-ups,
have
right? Like, why would you chop
yeah.
feet? You're supposed to do like big steps, like that jump stop, and then make sure that you can angle their drive. Like that's what closeouts are now, because you cover more space and actually like the chop steps. I know we taught it, but like chop steps is just taking away your own kinetic energy, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I'll have to ask them about that specifically.
Hey, of players with 300 or more closeouts, the Raptors gave up gave up the third most efficient possessions of anyone in the league. First was Anthony Davis, because when Anthony Davis closes out, he's not there to protect the rim anymore.
Well, surely
Gradey Dick
that's the Gradey. Surely that's what's motivating it.
But I actually liked what I saw from his defense. If he just gets big and strong, like when he corrals a drive, it's like he's not there.
Yep.
But he is there. Like when he can just meet a guy and put his body on him and actually impact the path, he'll be there to do that. There's bad defenders with big, strong bodies who just aren't there to move a guy. He's there. He just can't move him.
There's a reason we have such reverence for fire hydrants. The Lou Dorts of the world, the Kyle Lowrys of yesteryear. Like that, being strong, and for everyone who's listening to this who has played pickup basketball, it works the exact same way. You tried to get the edge on somebody who was close enough to you in quickness, but much stronger than you. You went nowhere. You went nowhere. Why did you go nowhere? Because you're not as strong as that person. And Gradey Dick kneeled before the NBA and said, "You will push me around, and I will still fight." And God bless him for doing so. Do you want to talk about Jakob and then Darko?
I have one more question.
Yeah,
You think he's going to start next year, don't you?
I do. Yes.
Yeah. So I love that. I'm not against it. I just want to hear you make the case.
The case? The Raptors, they're going to be driven by offense next year, whether they like it or not. They have to rely on their front court to win games. They have to rely on RJ to continue to rebound as well as he was towards the end. They have to expect Gradey to be a little bit more of a force there, and they have to expect Immanuel to like, hey, It's a new season. You're coming out of training camp. You're coming out of preseason. Bring the ruckus a little bit more at the point of attack. They need all that kind of stuff to happen. And I think they can't look past, like, they can't look 5 wins that changes them from, like, maybe it's like 38-32 or something like that, and say Gradey's development is less important than, or even like 4 wins or something like that because of defensive matchups with him starting. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I think Gradey is a player of enough consequence that you give him the start for that sake, his development's sake, then rather than, making it like, well, we'll see when he gets in type thing.
You don't have anyone on the roster who fixes problems on the defensive end who can start without making even more of it. Like maybe Ochai would help on the defense, but more than Gradey, obviously. But the offense,
Ochai would help a lot,
yeah,
defensively.
but the offense is so limited that I actually think you're limiting development for guys. Like that would hurt how Scottie develops as a player. Not having that shooting around him, the Gradey. I think having Gradey and Quickley around Scottie, starting games, 6 minutes a game you're going to see some really cool stuff from Scottie on offense. Like with that lineup around him, he's going to try stuff out. He's going to get to the rim a lot more. The paint's going to be wide open.
It wouldn't surprise me if the Scottie Gradey stuff pops off quicker than the Scottie Immanuel stuff pops off. That wouldn't surprise me.
Because we were talking about mindset,
mm-hmm.
and it's a more natural mind meld. Quickley has his guy in Poeltl. Maybe let's move to that.
So Jakob Poeltl signs for 4 years, 80. He's back in Toronto. He has expectations about what this team is going to be. That is not the team he's on. And he, I think, had a really tough start to the year defensively. I thought that he was asked to like overextend himself on a lot of pick and roll coverage. I think that like when he was asked to hedge, he had a tough time setting the edge. And if you're hedging and you get beat around, that's tough.
You can't.
And if you're hedging and you keep getting split and teams are like toggling between those 2 wins, very tough. You want to make guys take negative dribbles, and he had a tough time doing that. So the Raptors changed how they played defense, and they got him more into a more comfortable mode, and I think he started to become much better defensively. He is a good defender. He had a bad defensive stretch. I think that what he said to me at the start of the season when I was asking about, how do you make this offense, given what we know your guys' strengths and weaknesses are, how do you turn this offense from really bad in the front court or in the half court to really good? And he was talking about like, it's all about timing, screens, angles, carving out space. And while that didn't manifest in his screening at all, really, it manifested in how the forwards carved out space for one another. So he was correct about that. And the Raptors found their way to success offensively by, in the intermediate stuff with their forwards, kind of finding space. And who was the passer in a lot of those actions? Jakob Poeltl, high-low. I think the team is better suited for him now than it was before all the trades. I do. I think that when we say Quickley has his guy, I think he does. I think it is cool to see that matchup of like Scottie, Gradey, IQ, Jakob. I think and RJ as a guy whose hard charging style will like help stir the drink. I think that Jakob Poeltl, and I've spent a lot of time talking about this, rather than Nicholas Claxton, because I know Claxton is more switchy and more vertical. I think that Poeltl helps facilitate more of the skill sets on the roster with his mindset and his skill set alike. I think he is the center for this team in the short term, and short term is like 1 to 2 years. Is he the guy for the full 4 years of his contract? I don't know, but I think he's certainly done enough that like he's in the ballpark of what he's earning. Good, great. The guys like him. He brings his lunch pail to work, and he's a a decent center in the NBA, and you pay a pretty price for it, but you're in the limbo between, hopefully next year, truly horrific and truly great, and you got to pay guys, and that's what Jakob is to me right now, a man who helps facilitate development and make them respectable in some ways, because the center
Yeah,
is really
yeah, I
important
agree
for
with
that.
that. I don't think he is good enough to clean up what the team is going to be on the defensive end.
No, no.
And I also don't think he's as good as maybe Masai Ujiri thought he was.
That's possible. He called him a top 10 center. And then I kind of
Yeah,
I investigated that claim, and I did not come away thinking the same thing. But
yeah.
it was 3 a.m. I was reacting to the trade, and I was like, I don't think the Raptors made the right call here. But he's here now. He signed a contract, and he's going to help facilitate the players who are now on the roster. I don't think it's the cleanest fit with Scottie, but I think it's a much cleaner fit with RJ, with Quickley, with Gradey, with whoever the hell else is coming into the this roster over the summer.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a ton to add to that. I mean, I think stylistically, he is what you want on a team with Quickley, on a team with Barnes. Like a good passing, good finishing defensive center. That's what you want alongside them, right? Pluck the low hanging fruit. He's going to do that.
Yeah. I think that's just as well. You want to talk about Darko?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved his season.
Loved. It's hard for me to say loved because I think the Raptors underperformed basically every stretch of the season, and I wish that their defense was better. Now, I do want to. I'll start off just saying this, and then if you loved his season, go nuts, and I'll, I guess, quibble where I hear it. The fact that he completely relaunched the Raptors offense, found success with it, given the restraints of strengths and weaknesses on the roster, the total buy-in he got from every player who came into that scheme, that system, the players who benefited from it, and the fact that interpersonally, the players are objectively in a way better spot with Darko than they were with Nick. All that stuff is a huge win, and that stuff isn't easy, especially with how tumultuous this season was. Big wins there. I think the offense is in a significantly better place than it was. Part of that is the changes that were made roster-wise, but that's where I'm at with Darko, the broad strokes.
Okay, loved overreaction. To me, the thing that mattered was they needed to revamp their offense, modernize it. And they have a really good modern offense. It was great. That if you just look at the hallmarks of what generally breeds success in modern NBA, paint touches, stuff, actions, cuts,
Making defenses defend multiple actions, making defenses contend with 5 players at once, making defenses
yep,
move consistently. All
yep.
that stuff puts you in a position where your players make easier shots. And NBA players make shots, yes, but they make easier shots more often. All that stuff, if the system creates that, you're in the money. That's where it's huge.
North-south passing. They started possessions among the earliest in the league. All of this, they were top 5. In their expected efficiency on shots was 3rd in the league. Went Boston Celtics, Oklahoma City Thunder, Toronto Raptors.
Do you have last year's expected efficiency on shots?
Oh, buddy. So that's the selling point, right?
Yep.
If everything else is a wash, that's pretty good, right? To have that in the bag and know that that's what you're running, know you have guys who buy into that. That's pretty impressive. Last year they were 11th.
with far less talent on the roster. And like this is the kind of thing too, right? Is like last year's Raptors were 94.5 points per possession in the half court. This year 94.2. But the level of talent is like it fell off a cliff. And the Raptors
Yeah.
overall, while yes, they were the 12th offense in the NBA overall last year, and this year they're 24th, we're talking about an insane disparity in talent. And that's not just because of the trades they made to kind of like reset the timeline and work around younger players. It's the fact that everyone got injured and then everyone had, not everyone, Immanuel and RJ had personal tragedies that they had to attend to. Like everything happened in such a way that the Raptors were playing somewhere closer to like a G League roster than they were an NBA roster some nights.
Yeah.
And so in the easy numbers to go look at, the big team numbers, you might not be able to notice the steps that the Raptors took. But the fact that they were, whatever the opposite of buoyed, drowned by playing like 9 G League guys every night,
Yeah.
and they still come out roughly even is very notable.
Drowned. Do you think? So I trust the offense. I honestly think, given a season of health from the guys, the Raptors are going to have a pretty banging offense.
I think they will be a top 15 half court offense for the first time since the championship season.
Yeah. Yeah. With that in mind, do you trust Darko and staff to patch around? We've talked a lot about the, more than the sum of your parts. Toronto's defensive issues is more than the sum of their parts, right? They have bad defenders. At the same thing, it adds up to worse problems than the individual. Do you think that the coaching staff can patch around that? Do you trust them to find that?
So the Raptors half court defense was 23rd this year.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, they were the 27th defense per cleaning the glass. I do not think the Raptors defense will be this bad next year. I expect
Okay.
them to hover around, like not 27th. I expect them to hover around perhaps 20th,
Yeah.
15 to 20. I wouldn't be surprised. If their offense overall, with that transition boom that will be there, it's going to be there. I think like that's how you get yourself into like a top half net rating team. That's how you do a little bit better than people think. That's how you get into the sum of their parts is that there's no two sides to the floor in basketball. It's all one floor,
Yeah.
baby, and that's how they overachieve. Defensively, I don't think the talent is there to like wow, and I think they would have to be so connective in motion and in
Yeah.
communication, and they'd have to be doing a lot of the cutting edge stuff. It's tough for me to see them jumping into that. Darko is pretty like he's pretty radical coach. Maybe they
Mm-hmm.
try and do that. He is a guy who said like we want to protect the paint, make
Mm-hmm.
sure that teams go for above the break threes. A lot of the the newfangled defensive wrinkles are about loading up in the gaps, moving teams elsewhere, and moving the
Yeah.
ball up the floor above the break. The Raptors might like institute some of that stuff, but they did a lot less of that this year than they did under Nick Nurse. It was more, dialed back, that kind of stuff. So I would be surprised if they try and take that step next year. So I'm not sure defensively if they have the juice. Offensively, I believe in it. I do. I truly do. Defensively, I'm not sure if I'm there.
They did improve from last or second last in the league for the past 4 years at conceding corner threes.
Yep.
They improved to 19th. They allowed fewer than 10% of opposing shots to come from the corner for the first time in 4 seasons.
No,
They
no
did
strong side
improve.
help. No strong side help. Easy peasy.
But they also improved at limiting the rim. Last year they were 23rd in rim attempts. They improved to 16th. So, his stated goals, not the rim, not the corner, improved a little bit. They were still below average.
They just allowed
I
a
do
higher
think
percentage of like conversion at the rim this year.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's going to get buy-in. It's just I don't know if he's going to have schemes to paper around. Like, the Miami Heat, they can have no good defenders in the lineup. They're going to try something. I don't know if the Raptors are going to do that, but I can expect at least solidity, I think, because he'll get buy-in.
That's yeah. I It's gone bad this year though. Like I think it's
Yeah.
gone bad this year on defense. And but I really not only do I have trouble assigning blame on such a team to players, I do with Darko as well. I think it's really tough to
Yeah.
like institute an offense to completely change scheme, to go against type and what all the players wanted to do. And like get this, RJ and Quickley, they didn't they're new to this as well. They played on the Knicks, man.
Yeah.
They were new to this offense as well. Kelly was a natural fit, yes. That was the one guy. Ochai was a natural fit, yes. That was the other guy. But everyone else that played a massive role in this offense, even like Gradey hasn't, like at Kansas, it's completely different. Everyone who played a major role in this offense was coming from an offense that looked nothing like it. Nothing
Yeah.
like it the year before, and many years of their playing before. And all those guys started popping off. Well done to Darko.
Yeah.
And these players popping off, he's going to get some guys paid too. So if they ever get it on the defensive end, that's the other shoe that has to drop, RE Darko. But I think that's what next season is for. To see creativity on defense, to see a healthier defense, to see what training camp and all that kind of stuff does. If they completely flounder on that end again, then I think it will be okay for some people to start being like, I'm not so sure. But to this point, the Raptors just didn't feel the competitive defense by the roster often enough, I think.
I
And
think we agree on Darko then.
yeah, we do. We do. I didn't love the season, and of course you took that back, but I'm happy about Darko's season.
I just think the thing I wanted from the coaching staff I got.
I think so too.
So I love what else? I was looking for improvement from the best players. I got that. And I was looking for the offense to just modernize. And that happened too. Like the Raptors are one of the most modern
Yep,
offenses in the league. That's pretty
100%.
cool. After so many years of watching a team from 2006 try to bang with 2023 offenses, it's pretty cool that the Raptors are playing in the same year.
Yeah. So Gary Trent Jr. We're into the bench.
Yeah.
We're counting Grady as like he's part of it. So we're into the bench. There's maybe 3 or 4 guys we're going to talk about here, and then there's going to be a big clump of guys. Big clump. Gary Trent Jr. A lot of this we get to talk about potentially his future.
Yep.
I will just say before we talk about Gary's game and how like his impact slowed, his shot attempts fell off a cliff, like it just completely changed on him. Gary the person, extremely well liked by his teammates, extremely well liked by his coaches, and has not slipped up once and it's the NBA. You want to win, but his role and what he expected to have happen got fucking jerked around crazier than anybody else's. Now that's not
in a contract year.
Yes, in a contract year, well twice because of the player
Yep.
option. Twice he just had the rug perhaps pulled out from under him. And that doesn't mean the Raptors are bad. That doesn't mean the players who took shots are bad. It's just that's the way basketball works sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Players who are in Gary's position, sometimes they voice that like this is bullshit. He didn't. He is the most oft-spoken mentor of Grady's. He is the most oft-spoken mentor of many players outside of Garrett Temple. Can't speak enough to that. However, he struggles within Darko's offense because Gary, the type of shooter he is, the type of creator he is just for himself, he loved the 2006 offense where the Raptors, mostly Pascal, also Fred, collapsed the defense, created an open catch and shoot look. He made it, or the ball squirted out to him with 8 seconds left. It's time to work something off the bounce or get downhill off of a dribble handoff in the first or secondary action. And he loved the volume he got, and he did okay with it given the difficulty of it. And we saw him improve with his push shot. We saw him improve as a catch and shoot guy marginally, but we didn't see improvements over the course of his time as a Raptor on the defensive end. We didn't see improvements as a playmaker, not a lick, and we didn't necessarily see improvements as a finisher or a ball handler. He's a little bit more, has a little bit more time to like switch and change up. He uses a 2-foot stop better in the lane than he used to, but that's Gary's situation. I still think he's a good player in the right place. I think he's a positive player on a good team, depending on the context. It's just he went from reportedly thinking maybe I'm grabbing 22, 23 per. I'm going to ask for 25. I'm going to get bartered down to 22, 23. He might be looking at 13 to 15 instead now per year.
Among medium minute guys, 1,500 minutes on the season, he was in the 26th percentile for drive frequency and the 9th percentile for drive efficiency, possessions.
Yep.
That's not livable.
This offense is trying to get guys downhill. And
that's not that's not something you can survive on in today's NBA. Like, his step back twos had a hot streak there. He was scoring 30 a game for 5 games in a row or whatever it was, which was cool, but it's not a skill set that behooves Darko's offense.
He needs to play next to LeBron.
It doesn't fit next to his teammates. It's and defensively he's not doing anything to clean it up. I just, as much as he has great skills in a lot of areas, I don't think he helps the Raptors on the court. And guys take pay cuts. If he were to be a mid-level exception guy, he's, that changes things. He's really good at that salary.
He's
but
such a
guys
good shooter. Like, he's such a good shooter.
He's a wildly good shooter.
That saves a lot of stuff. But as far as like a combo guard, a 2 guard, or a guy who flexes to 3, just the complete inability to put the ball down with momentum and create branching opportunities where it could result in a layup, a pass out to 3, or an extended drive where like more opportunities arise because of how you turn the defense. He just does not provide that. And the Raptors offense is running guys through a bunch of screens, giving them opportunities to make plays while going downhill so that they can play make to their teammates or at the rim largely. He shot the ball well, but he doesn't finish well enough at the rim to be a guy who kills on the back cuts that this offense creates either.
Yeah.
He shot the ball well. He did his job there. It's just been such a tough stylistic fit for him otherwise.
You mentioned him getting less money, and he's going to get a lot less money, but it's probably not going to be with the Raptors. Guys don't take huge pay cuts and stay with the same team.
Not when a team is one of the worst teams in the league. Even there's going to be a team. We saw Fred. I think Fred is a good guard. You and I, we got Fred. We got called the Fred lovers. I resent that so much. I pushed back on him for so long. But saying that he was a good NBA guard, he is. Is he worth $40 million in the structure of like an offense? Not remotely. There's going to be a team, not to the tune of $40 million, but there's probably going to be a team that is a little bit more comfortable going north on the pricing of Gary than the Raptors are.
Yeah.
But then again, like it could end up being that the Raptors are kind of left with money. Like it could happen. and they're like, well, we got money. Like, I guess Gary falls into 2 or 3 more million per and comes back. That's a possibility, but yeah, we'll see.
If I don't know if the Raptors, it would be nice if they had young guys who were chomping at the bit for minutes and would improve.
This is the thing. Is like Gradey is not so good, like 37 minutes per game good, that you're like, oh, Gary is completely. Nope, there's room for Gary and Gradey on this roster next year if the Raptors want
Yeah.
to spend the money. The guy that you wish, Jordan Nwora, was like 23 instead of 25, or you wish Jordan was, more impressive with his stretch as a Raptor, or you wish Ochai, you wish one of those guys made it a no-brainer. But Ochai shot 22% or he shot
Yep.
50. It's just nobody made it a no-brainer. Gary, the Raptors were probably like, one of these guys will make it easy. And the fact that Gary even seems like a guy who could potentially come back is like, damn, Jordan and Ochai they didn't do what was expected of them.
I think there were 2 or 3 spots to take as, we're young guys the team wants to invest in our development. I think Ochai took that spot. I think the Raptors want to invest in his development going forward. And I don't think anybody else. I think that the Raptors had a hole, and we're getting way past Trent here, but I'll loop it back around at the end. The Raptors had 2 months where they were trying to just hit on something around the edges, and they got basically nil from it. And that's why, if they had got a couple hits, if Nwora had improved at defense, he became this bulldog guy with his offensive skill set, you're thinking, wow, this is a guy we might want to give 10 minutes a game to. Maybe we'll see what he becomes. They got nothing from it. Yep. And so you come back around, you say, Trent, he's a beloved locker room guy. We know what we're getting. May as well. That is, the Raptors don't have that pipeline of talent that you really want to see. Man, it's like they don't even have Delano Banton and Champagny and these guys who
Ochai
they
shot
could get
34 or 35% like he did in Utah, then it would have been pretty simple. Like it would have been pretty simple. But the fact that not only like his jumper like snaps out of form sometimes. Like you're seeing a wide variation on how it's looking, and you're also seeing like this massive dip in percentages. This isn't Gradey just stepping into the league. Like Ochai was 4 years at Kansas, had like a very accomplished senior season, and like his junior season was pretty good shooting the 3 ball as well. And just it hasn't happened. And as a Raptor, you just like Ochai, if he was 6'8", you start to wonder how it gets interesting. But he's like 6'5". He just has to shoot the daygum thing. And if he shot the daygum thing, then Gary, it's like Gary's probably not coming back. We will allocate RJ, IQ, Gradey, and Ochai. Like that is the bulk of 1 and 2.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. But yeah. Let's talk about let's keep it on Ochai and then go to Kelly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved actually Ochai's defense.
Oh yeah.
I thought that like the screen navigation was particularly strong. I thought that he played good players to their weaknesses really well, played them into help quite often. I thought his foot speed and his like give a shit level was high. He could corral guys, and I thought like off the ball he cared and he was engaged, and that was a lot more than many players outside of like he might have had the best on-ball defense on the Raptors this season outside of Gary Trent Jr. in small pockets of like really big time ball denial and ball pressure, and then OG Anunoby. Ochai ranks second for me in what was provided there. I thought that was awesome. However, and lots of good cutting. In Utah, he did a lot of cutting as well. In Utah, he was able to find space and like knife into places, but there just is nothing off the bounce. Nothing off the bounce. And he shot 22% from 3. There's just not a lot there. That's my Ochai thing.
So yeah, the defense was really awesome. You can have defensive specialists. Like that's a thing, you know, especially on this team. That holy cow, they're gonna need someone on the wing to just get in there
But
and
like,
stop
here's the thing,
someone.
right? Can I just say, Isaac
Say,
Isaac Okoro, right? Defensive specialist,
mm-hmm.
roughly, similar size to Ochai as well.
Yep, yeah,
For
yeah,
what
about
it's
6'5",
worth,
yeah,
similar type of defender, also better, I think, defensively.
yeah,
He shot 29% from three in his first season. Then he shot 35%. Then he shot 36%. He just shot 39%. Even the defensive specialists, they don't get the shots up as often, but they have to punish the like, okay, it's getting a bit crazy guys who
yep.
are pulling off of them. Ochai didn't even do that. Like, that's defensive specialists, a lot is asked of them more than they used to be. This is PJ Tucker's NBA.
The other thing about Ochai, he didn't make it at the rim. Like he cuts well, he gets the ball at the rim, but he doesn't put it in.
Yep.
Like the Raptors had a lot of guys at that end of the season who just were incapable of putting the ball in the basket when they got it in the paint. Like Malik Williams, one of the worst big finishers I've seen. And Ochai, I mean, he played maybe the biggest of any of the Raptors to end the season there before the real rotation guys came back. He played big and he got there, and it just wasn't. He had no finishing moves. You know, if he wasn't going like clean kinetic transfer to that jump and dunking it, wasn't a lot there.
He gets caught on his last step a lot, and it's trouble.
Yeah,
And that's why he shot
yeah.
61% as a Raptor at the rim. And get
He
this,
cuts though.
he shot 1 of 22, 5% in the short mid range. And even like the most damning thing is not that, which is not good. It's that on open threes, he shot 27%. And
Yeah,
on wide open threes, he shot 31%. It's completely untenable. Like the gym, his jumper has to be like that's everything this summer. That just has to be it
yeah,
because swing skills are rarely swing skills. Like it's an overused term. That's the one. His
yeah.
validity as an NBA player, what lies between he and that outcome is the jumper being livable.
There's enough of a history that you can't rule it out. Like I know that it was just miserable in Toronto, but given college in Utah, it could come around. For sure, it could come around.
You have to hope.
And if it does, then that's an around the margins win, right?
I think so. When that trade was made, did you consider the
Yeah.
first for Kelly, or did you think the first was for Ochai?
I think the first was just Masai said, I'm not picking 4 guys in this draft. And then he's like, oh, trade deadline's almost over, and I'm going to pick 4 guys in the draft. I got to get rid of one.
Yeah. It's the 29th pick. So
It was Kelly.
I thought
They
it was
have
Kelly. A lot of people thought it was Ochai.
they wanted framework. They wanted to see what a spacing big looked like next to Scottie. They wanted a rotation guy who they could they knew what they were getting. That helps you develop. Like there's a lot that they got in that trade for a pick that they have anyway. They have the 31st pick from Detroit. That was a very low leverage trade going both ways. It's not a huge deal. Even if neither Kelly nor Ochai are huge contributors down the road, it's not the biggest deal.
And on top of that, the real sickos will tell you that the first pick in the second round is better than the 29th pick
Yeah,
because
yeah,
of
yeah.
the contract situation.
Yeah, team control.
Yeah. So that's the Ochai situation. I came across quite harsh. I know I did. Let me say, actually, I was very high on his defense too.
You're high on the defense.
I'm just waiting for it with Ochai. I like Ochai. I just like you just can't shoot it like that. I'm sorry, you can't shoot it like that. You have to shoot it better. Kelly
Kelly.
Olynyk. I think we saw some of the worst front court defense I've seen, considering that the Raptors were quite spoiled for some time. they were so spoiled in front court defense that they kind of like poo-pooed Precious Achua. That's how
Yeah.
spoiled. Kelly,
I can't believe they traded Kelly Precious in
a
that. Anyway,
toss in. He predictably has been quite fun and impressive with the Knicks, obviously.
as we both knew he would be.
So with the Raptors, Kelly averages almost 13 points a game,
Mhm.
almost 5 assists a game, 5.6 rebounds. He shoots 82% from the free throw line, shoots 64% from two. He shot 34% from three. But here's the thing. He is a stretch big in name only. Like, you look at his 3-point attempts over the past few years where he's been not a guy who is stretching the floor as a shooter. Like, you can see his 3-point attempts go up with Miami. He's the shooter who has to finish possessions on good teams, or with Boston, right? He becomes, with Houston, Detroit, Utah, Toronto, a playmaker who is
Yeah.
meant to facilitate ball handlers and spacing above the break and to reliably move guards around into
Yep.
advantageous positions and reward cutting. He did that
Great
with
in delay action.
exactly out of pistol, Houston, Detroit, Utah, Toronto. Every stop, he did the job. He's become a very underrated playmaking big. He did that with the Raptors more than anything else. He facilitated Darko's system and will do that
Yep.
from the bench and hopefully paired with Scottie Barnes and occasionally Jakob Poeltl, because it was unsightly to watch him try and have to hold down the front court, which he wasn't expecting to have to do.
He's not a 30-minute like he no one if he plays 16 minutes a game, he's fine. You can survive that. Easy peasy on defense. He's not supposed to play 35 minutes. That's not who he is. That's as a defender.
That like
Do you
the
know how
just the last time he played heavy minutes, like those heavy minutes, it was a 27 game stretch in Houston and like 43 games in Miami where he was in the middle of a lot of zone. Like
Yeah.
less friction, less miles, you know?
And on top of that, the Raptors had no one with size to tag his pick and rolls. Everything was going over the top. Anyway, do you know how beneficial it is, though, to just have a full rotation of players who run the offense?
Yep.
The Raptors, for the past 3 years, have not been able to field a full rotation of players who can just play NBA level ball and are running the same offense. Kelly will do that. You added one more guy who can just do what you need on the basketball court. If you can get a full rotation of that, you can get in the playoffs. It's like
You got a
there's
stew
so many
going.
teams who don't have 9 players who can just play NBA ball, who know what you want, who pay attention to the details, who know scheme, who can adapt scheme. The number of teams that have 9 guys who can do that, not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. The Raptors have not been one. Kelly is one. You can just chalk one up,
Yep.
right? That's huge.
It's a big deal. Now, did Kelly take the hometown discount? I don't think he did. Is Kelly on a team that has like salary cap to like, hey, it's going somewhere? Yep. We talked about how that might like play into uh, Gary's situation as well. But Kelly is there to facilitate this type of scheme. He's a stopgap and a
Yep.
good stopgap. Uh, Now people can quibble and be like, is a first round pick worth that or anything like that? Who really cares? I mean, the Raptors, they
Yeah,
weren't
the
going to pick
29.
anybody. Obviously, you would have liked that situation to be like a home run situation because the Raptors always used to hit home runs. Everything was a home run. But this, as Bobby said, we got to hit some doubles and some singles. I think this was a single,
Yeah.
and sometimes you got to hit singles. Sometimes that's how it shakes out. I like Kelly being on the team. I'm not particularly worried about it. And his presence saved the Raptors from only being, since when they went on that 3-19 stretch since Jakob's injury, they had the second worst offensive rating in the NBA instead of the worst. However, they had the worst net rating. So, them's a break. But we had to watch the games, man. I know a lot of people tuned out. Well, you did too, actually. You missed the whole month. I watched and talked about every single one. And except for one, I was at Trey's birthday and Kai took over. God bless him. Kai went an hour. And S did one when I was in Mexico. So thank you very much for that, fellas. But yeah, that's the Kelly situation. Oh boy. Are we in best of the rest? Does Bruce Brown ascend past that? Or did
We can talk
or
about
did
Bruce Brown.
reading out his driving efficiency numbers remove him from that equation? Like,
That injury better be all he's chalking it up to be.
so Bruce, for inquiring minds, we're talking about a stat line of 9.6 points, 2.7 assists, 3.8 rebounds, 53% from two, 83% from the free throw line, and 32% roughly from three. Bruce Brown. I spoke to Caitlin in the immediate aftermath of the trade, and she let me know that, like, hey, the Bruce Brown you saw with Denver, that's not who Indiana was getting. It's probably not who you're getting. And she was talking mostly about the defense. She was correct. He went from making just a sterling, like his introduction to the Raptors, where he's playing, against the Bulls, like impact minutes down the stretch. He's Scottie's, small screener of choice. He's slipping into space. He's navigating the middle. You're like, ooh, this guy maybe is super interesting around Scottie. Everything became a lot less interesting as time went on. You mentioned how inefficient he was as a driver earlier. The Raptors, unfortunately for him, because when he was so good, he was working off of Jokic. When Darko talked about Bruce being a guy he studied, analyzed as one of the best cutters in the NBA, he was playing off of Kyrie, James Harden, Kevin Durant, and then on the Nuggets. On the Pacers, not quite as fantastical, not quite as cerebral, and that's fine. And on the Raptors, openly discussing how he might fit on other teams. I suspect the Raptors were thinking that he would go elsewhere before the trade deadline came. He disappointed defensively. I think he was overtaxed offensively, and he didn't get to play his game offensively, really. And that's just what it is. I think Bruce Brown is a much better player than what he showed with the Raptors. I hope that all other teams think that as well. I hope that a bidding war ensues. But Bruce, I really enjoyed our first conversation. I really enjoyed his first little baby stint, but then like the lack of effort on defense, the lack of care. He just, as far as like basketball performance, not his strongest. Love the cowboy hats though.
What Indiana got compared to Denver was a step down. And then it was several steps down what Toronto got compared to Indiana. He was like I just did all this prep work for this Milwaukee Indiana series, and I watched the 5 games, and I was looking at all the numbers. I was
You
like,
see
wow,
the
Bruce
zone?
Brown.
He had to beat the Bucks by being in the middle of the zone. Pretty handy in a tight spot.
I was like, Bruce Brown, not in the series. That helps Milwaukee. Not the guy Toronto got. We're going to be saying this about a lot of guys towards
That's
the
what
end of the bench.
happens when your team is really bad. That's the unfortunate thing. The Raptors used to be like Bismack Biyombo on the Hornets, right? What's going on there? He comes over. It's gangbusters, man.
Yeah.
It used to be that.
Rondé Hollis Jefferson. It's like a good team can turn a player into the best version of themselves.
Yep.
And a bad team can turn a player into the worst version of themselves.
Preach. Certainly. That is like the Bruce Brown situation with the Raptors summed up. I know it's not very nice what we're saying about Bruce, but Bruce is a better player than this. I hope he's healthy. I hope if he's with the Raptors, he's a more fun version of himself. But I think for the best situation for Bruce and for the
Yeah.
Raptors is for another team to see like, oh, he fits quite well here. I think he'd work quite well off of our superstars, and there's an exchange there, a natural one, I
Yeah.
think.
Toronto's not getting, I don't think, enough
$22
capital in
million
exchange.
worth of.
He's expiring. It's just he should go to another team. Toronto's not going to get anything for it. They're not going to have to give anything to dump him. It's expiring. It's just he should be on another
I
team.
wonder actually if there's like a team that's in the tax already that's
Yeah.
like we're already paying it. Let's bring Bruce Brown in for 22. I wonder if that happens because of the trading situation. Like draft night limbo, I wonder if something
Yeah.
happens there. But more than likely, mm, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Who else? So there's a lot of players here. I'm going to say the player most deserving of the next conversation is Chris Boucher.
Yeah.
Chris Boucher.
Okay. May I take the first
Yeah, man.
kick at the Boucher can? So, I think we've both said this in our own way over the years in separate pieces about Boucher, that his success, perhaps more than any other, is a real bellwether for how the team is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Boucher, when he is at his best, it means the team knows who they are, they have identity, they have role, they have advantage creators, they have defense, they have structure, they have foundation, they have hierarchy. When Chris was playing, he was playing exceptionally. I think there were times when Chris Boucher was the solution to the Raptors. I think he actually led the team and on off. Just which like they didn't play him when they were bad, which helps that. But at the same time, for a long time, because he has been the bellwether, they know what Chris Boucher is. They knew where he was beneficial. They knew where he was not. And at a certain point in the season, they said, we only want to play guys who are very, very good, who are part of our future, or who we don't know and want to figure information about. And Chris was none of the above. So despite being in many ways better than several players being played over him in the rotation, he wasn't getting minutes. That's life. I've been calling him the Bobby Portis of a championship team for a while now, and I think he is going to win a championship and be like the ninth man who plays 12 minutes in a finals game and goes +6.
I thought
He
that
has a
might.
future.
I thought that might end up being like the Suns, just because of their interest in him, but it never. And even they, like the Suns, probably aren't as good as they need to be for that, and he never
Yeah.
ended up there. It's like Beyblades. You need
I want to hear this.
Beyblades. You need the Beyblade situation. You have like the linoleum kitchen floor you grew up in with your brothers and sisters, and you pull the Beyblades and they just scatter away from each other. That is Chris Boucher on these Raptors. Chris
Yeah.
Boucher on the Beyblade in the arena version of the Raptors can crash and bang and destroy. The guardrails are on, and when those guardrails are on, suddenly his inherent advantages seem massive. He's
Yeah.
hellacious, helter-skelter player. And it wasn't so often that we got to see that. And yeah, as you said, a bellwether for the Raptors' success. I hope his knee is healthy as can be. I hope he comes back. And I hope that if he is leaving the Raptors, that it is to a place where he finds, a decent amount of playing time. And if he stays
He
with the
deserves it.
Raptors, then I hope he actually factors in, because it might not be as clean a fit just because of like trading for Kelly in that situation. But if he's on the Raptors, like God bless, I hope it works out well.
The other reason he didn't fit with the Raptors this year is because they tried to make him shooting guard for like a long stretch of the season. He took more corner threes than he ever has, less shots at the rim. It's like, I'm sorry, I love Darko's offense. I've gone over that. He definitely tried to turn a couple square pegs into round pegs, and like Pascal Siakam and Chris Boucher. And Boucher is not a shooting guard. But they asked him to be one, and Chris is always going to try to do whatever you ask him to do. I hope he's not with the Raptors, not because I dislike him, not because I think he's a bad player. I just think he deserves to be on a team where he would factor in more, and onto which he would fit better.
I want to watch Chris Boucher swing game 3 of a playoff series. Like, I want 12 points in 9 minutes. I want 3 blocks. I want it.
Yep.
And it's not coming on the Raptors, so like give it to me elsewhere. I want to watch that happen.
That transition dunk that forces a timeout from the other team with the home crowd in the playoffs going crazy, man. He deserves that again. Yeah. For the first time.
So we would have talked about Jontay Porter. Jontay Porter's on-court play would have carved him out.
Not familiar.
Probably like 8 to 10 minutes of our conversation. However, I hope that Jontay, he will never be in the NBA again. That much is clear. I think it's very obvious that he has a gambling addiction. Like, I think that's, you wouldn't risk that based on what he was winning. It's just, he was en route. He was going to get like a multi-year contract in the NBA. The consequence of these actions is millions of dollars. And who knows if he's able to carve out a longer career into his 30s, something like that, if he shoots the ball well. I hope that he finds peace in his life. He is part of this insane Raptors season is the fact that Jontay Porter was betting on the Raptors to lose in games that he was playing and betting on his own number. It's all crazy. I thought at the live show, when all of a sudden Jontay Porter being like, oh yeah, he does a lot of stuff with money. He has a lot of like extracurricular interests. I thought that being brought up was weird. I was like, are they? And then it turns out it went even farther. Just a little nugget for anybody who thinks they should come to next year's live podcast. You get little nuggets of info.
Yeah, crypto guy,
gambling guy. The water didn't shut off when he got to the league. So, yeah.
There's a lot of potential devils on your shoulder when you make it. There's a lot. And it's really sad. I don't know. I just don't know enough to diagnose addiction or anything like that. You know what though? We're all addicted to the internet. Addiction is like the rate of internet addiction right now is to the point that it's not even diagnosed because it's universal.
I will say there's I watched this documentarian who at like the 50-minute part of his documentary always says like, hey, glad you made it here. If you made it here, you're probably in like that 95th percentile or above in attention span. Whoever's here after, I guess because of the little break we took, after what, like 2 hours and 10 minutes, you're in probably the 98th percentile of attention span. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, Jontay, he had to be a part of the podcast. So we had to talk about it a bit.
Wait, I'm not done with my Devils thing though. There's a lot of things that can get you when you succeed, man, and it's just it's a shame. It's sad because he had success right there, and you know a lot of people were dunking on Wemby with that quote yesterday or the day before. Where
He
was
didn't
like,
say
"I don't party."
sex. He's such a coward, man. He's such a coward.
He's like, I don't the vices, and it's like you'd kind of have to find a way to shut off this the access that like vices can have to you when you're that successful.
Well, that's
like me. I can drink with ease, and it doesn't matter. Because no one's coming for me. No one wants what I have. No, like that, no one's investigating me. No one's trying to catfish me or trick me. It's so much easier. And that's the thing about whether or not Jontay has an addiction. It's just like it's a very different world in your relationship to it when you are successful on the verge of success to that at that rate. And it's hard. It's sad.
It's I'm not so much in the realm of being like, oh no, the rich people had such easy access to all like the stuff that other people want so bad, and they've desensitized themselves to it, so they keep chasing things. Like, everything in moderation. I do take it back
You
to
just
Wemby.
You just wrote the Marquise de Sade book, man. That was his whole thing. He's like, oh no, we're all the vices, and you're desensitized. And what's the next vice? And the next, sorry, keep going.
Wemby's such a coward for not saying sex as well. Like, come on, man. I'm the same way. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do whatever. I don't. Anytime someone asks me, I don't prop that up as virtuous. Why? Because like it's not actually virtuous. People like what they like. Most people have a vice, and Wemby not saying sex, coward, man. You gotta knock them all out if you're gonna talk about it. Quite a quite a tangent we went on there. Jordan Nwora, Javon Freeman Liberty, Jemias Ramsey, that pool of fellas, Jalen McDaniels. We'll talk Garrett Temple last. Just like, hey, Garrett Temple's cool guy, Labor King. Do you have any thoughts? Javon's back competing for a spot next year, at the very least.
I was very unimpressed with Javon Freeman Liberty.
What was it that was unimpressive?
So, I mean, I messaged you about this. I think he has a lot of advantages beyond what most deep bench guys has as an athlete, as a creator, as a cutter, and his just total inability to read the floor around him, not just as a passer, as a driver, as a scorer. It's very rudimentary to the extent that it beckons like a lighthouse of failure. You can just see plays break down where it's like, oh, you had that, you had that, you had that. Oh, you're just still dribbling there, man. The defense is totally recovered. And it doesn't matter how juicy your movement skills are and your ankle strength. It doesn't matter. If you just can't read, then like, you're just hurting the team out there. And like his defense was cool. He tried hard. He gets under guys. I mean, obviously it's not good. It wasn't good, but it was cool. Compared to everybody else around him, it was good. But man, if he just can't read the play developing around him and go to what is beneficial, then he just shouldn't be on an NBA roster.
He outpaced his playmaking limitations and still can as a G League guard, and might even be able to as a gunner overseas if he so chooses. He cannot outpace those limitations as an NBA guard. And that was like,
Yeah.
because that's the thing too, is like he did not play make very well at the G League level. And the Raptors tried to, at the 905, the same way they did with Norm, and it definitely didn't work with Norm either, but they tried to get more reps for like playmaking, right? They tried to use that as, a platform to leverage more of that development from him. It didn't happen. And while I liked that some of the games down the stretch, Javon kind of was like, I'm just going to let it go. Like, I'm going to just try and score the ball.
Yeah.
He played better because of that, but we're nitpicking IQ, Immanuel Quickley, about like talking about the barbecue fit defensively and all that kind of stuff. Javon, if he's not going to be an above average defender and he can't play make from that spot, and he's not the craziest inferno scorer, which he isn't,
Yeah.
he's an okay scorer at the NBA level. Tough.
Yeah.
He was, however, I think the most compelling. Outside, well, Jordan's more compelling, but of the guys who were like in that 10-day, two-way glob. He was more compelling than Jalen McDaniels, too. Although Jalen has a more tangible route to NBA impact, too, probably. Just because, it's like, man, if you cared more on defense, there's definitely, you can be a positive impact defender, and you just, cut, finish, shoot all right. And, you'll have a spot on the floor on some team in the NBA. It's not as easy for Javon. Not nearly.
And it's not this isn't like a guys stop playing. I don't think Javon stopped playing. I really respected his effort. I think he's a really high quality basketball player who will make millions of dollars probably in other leagues, which is fine. Xavier Moon is one of my favorite players. He's not an NBA
He's
guy.
cool.
I love guys who are successful in other leagues. This is a normal thing. I know that probably people really like Javon Freeman Liberty because he's got highlight finishes. He's like a juicy mover. Yeah, I mean that can make you millions of dollars in second tier leagues around the world.
Jordan Nwora. We talked about him a bit, I guess, when we were talking about Gary and who.
Can I just ask you it this way?
Yeah.
Do you see a path to him becoming a better defender?
There's this is the annoying thing. There's always a path to being a better defender. There's always a path.
Paul Atreides right now. He's like, there's a path. I see a path. There's a path.
Gold. There is always a path to being a better defender. Almost always. There are rare.
So what is it?
You gotta give a shit, man. You gotta read the scouting. You gotta read the scouting report and you gotta train yourself in for it. Those guys who take that step in and stunt back, and they know they've watched the scouting report. They know that that stunt generates a pass or an early pickup. They know that they can either stunt back and maybe get a steal in the strong side corner or force an early pickup. That's a win defensively. And you can do that better if you know the opposing player and what their tendencies are. That is a step up defensively. Does Jordan do stuff like that? No. Do many NBA players do stuff like that? Not necessarily. That's very minute. Being an elite mover around the court is the easiest way. Jordan isn't that on defense. He is very athletic, but he's big a little bit for the defensive end.
Yeah.
Effort. Attention to detail. We didn't see it on the Raptors. He might be back. We might see it. But there's a thing where you look at these guys on the Raptors where that's certain points of the season, they just needed volume from a guard. And guys stepped in and nobody blew anyone away. And Jordan is the best of that bucket, the best player of that bucket. But is that good enough, depending on how the Raptors draft and sign guys? Is that good enough to guarantee him a spot? Nope. Was there a way for him to play this season that he could guarantee himself a spot? I think so.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. But
I think the Raptors would rather be developing someone else.
Yep.
He's the same size as Ochai, pretty much. And there's a point on a defensive possession where you need to get big. Contesting a guy, you want to be as big as you. Ochai got big when you need to be big, right? He would really get up there and contest.
Just as I mentioned, they're listed as there's a 3-inch disparity between them.
Nwora's 6'2"?
No, Nwora's listed at 6'8".
He's bigger.
Yeah. He's not got the muscles, but he's
not 6'8".
He's 6'7", but he's bigger than Ochai. He's taller.
He's tiny when it's time to get big. His inside the arc contests are minuscule.
Yeah.
And that's the time when it's there's a lot of defense where it's very cerebral. You have to think about a lot going on. You need your momentum going one way, your body another, your weight. You need to control this, your feet. There's defensive footwork. Just contesting a shot is it's now I jump high. Put my hand up, now I jump high. And not around the rim. Just like when your guy is shooting a jumper, it's like jump high now.
Can I be annoying?
Jump high now.
I want to be a little bit annoying.
Be annoying.
Hand? Which hand you use?
Yeah, okay.
Which
You
what
want to
you
go with the
step?
hand,
Yeah,
not across the
I'm
body.
being such an idiot about it. Yeah, go ahead.
But he didn't do that, right? It's like I just don't. There's nothing I saw on his defense that screamed this guy's going
If
to get
you
better.
played a speck, a morsel of defense this season, Darko would have found a way to complement it. When Jordan was asked about, or when he was asked about Jordan's defense, he was like, "Yeah, we're working, like trying to make him so that he can be a two-way player." Like Darko wouldn't even offer him. He competes. He's just like, nope, needs work.
He didn't compete.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's kind of where we're at.
Great, he like really nifty finishing skills.
If
Good shooter. Like
okay,
he is an
shooter.
NBA caliber offensive player.
Agreed. Yes, agreed.
That's a thing. That's a nifty thing. I just wanted to find something.
That's nifty. Yeah, there's 30 guys played for the Raptors this year. Garrett Temple, the guy I think will be back. I think Garrett's on the team next year. He seems beloved. And also,
Yep.
Toronto is a place that needs as much labor power as possible, and he is that morsel.
Knowing what you're doing on the court allows Garrett Temple to be a center in NBA games. And, they didn't survive that per se, but it wasn't the weak point of their defense. Garrett Temple playing center was, on possessions, better than other matchups they had going on.
I'll agree with that. Yeah.
He poked Nick Claxton.
He poked him.
Nick Claxton got him on a spin in like the gentle flush, and the next time he tried to post him up, same spin, poked him. I just, obviously he shouldn't be playing on an NBA team that's trying to win minutes. Things happened and he was. Props to him for doing what he could, right? That's basically.
Yep. Props to us for doing what we could. That's the end of the podcast,
The real heroes
I think.
here.
Does that feel like...
Whoa, hold on. Malik, there's other guys who are still on the team, are there not?
No, but it's the bucket. You wanted to talk...
No, I don't want to talk.
Do you want to talk about Malik Williams?
Not really.
I think he shot 26%, right? Malik?
Yeah.
Yeah, 26%.
Yeah, we don't need to.
Mohamedou, I think, is like...
Yeah.
I hope he's with the 905 next year. Very interesting, like 905 guy. He pops off. You wait and see if something develops there. Jamias Ramsey, Eric Kareen bet his career that he's an NBA player. So I hope for Eric's sake. He
was the best defensive guard.
He was, yes.
The Raptors employed.
I was told
in 2023-24.
I was told that DJ Carton may have had something to say about that had we seen him healthy. But
yeah,
I didn't get to see that, and he didn't play on the team, so I didn't go back and watch the film. Because
I like DJ Carton. I watched a little tape. I actually thought he was a good player.
What did you see?
Really juicy, bouncy athlete. I only watched him play offense. Clean stroke, good shooter.
Lefty.
Yeah. Do you think the Raptors? I know you don't want to talk about the future because you're doing another podcast with that. But we've talked about guys coming back. Are they trying to get another high draft pick, or are they trying to win games next year?
Well, it depends on what happens. I don't think it depends on the draft lottery this year. That's literally the
Oh, say they. Oh yeah, if it conveys.
yeah.
Ignore. Yeah. So you think if their pick
They'll be
does?
too good for bottom
Yeah.
6.
Okay.
If
There
they
we go.
got that's the crux of the question, right? That's like what we're trying to
Yeah.
tease
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll be too good for bottom 6. I and if
Yeah.
they're still bottom 6 healthy, I have questions. I have
Yeah.
questions about impact metrics. I have questions about different things. I have questions about coaching. I have questions about players. I have questions about ceiling. I have questions about floor. If they run it back and they're still bottom 6, I'm kind of like, what the fuck is going on here? It's where I'm at with that. So
They also, you were talking about contracts. They're not far off from having their team money wise. Like when Scottie gets his contract, RJ has his contract, when Quickley gets his contract, you're getting close to the reason why they had to break up the last core. Like you money doesn't last. Like having money to spend doesn't last for long, especially when your best player is about to age from a rookie contract to a max contract.
nothing gold can stay.
Yeah.
Nature's
You
first
enjoy the
flame
season?
is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf. So Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down today. Nothing gold can stay. Did I enjoy the season? I enjoyed things about the season. I enjoy my life. I enjoy talking to the players. I hope that everyone who is part of the team had as much fun as possible with it. I hope that everyone enjoyed the little parts they played, and I hope that next year the access is better and they give us some GD food, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a tough season for access. How many poems do you have memorized? If I asked you to just recite another poem, could you do that?
I have a poem I wrote about dirt when I did landscaping. Although it's like a full page poem. I read it to the crew. Well, it's not about dirt, it's about mud. But why I wanted to read the poem first, just so if Raptors PR was listening, they'd tune out. They'd be like, okay, this idiot.
Yeah, we're doing poetry.
Yeah, we're doing poetry.
We're
Oleg and I were training for a marathon, and we were doing haikus with each other while we were running because we were watching Shogun. And I read when I was in Mexico, I read there was a really cool poem. It was Japanese death poems that kind of set the stage of like, what Japanese death poems are, why they're culturally or why they were so big culturally, and then it had some of the best ones. So poetry is
Can you
really
please read
cool.
your poem for us?
No,
Your poem about mud?
no, absolutely.
You got to give the people something. They're here almost 3 hours in.
I've given, I've given. I will continue to give. Um, anything you want to say? Obviously, the deal is the same deal as it has been the 2 years prior. If you are listening to this and for some reason you want me to follow you on Twitter, tweet at me swordfish and I'll follow you back. The same rule as it was for the past 2 years prior. Louis,
If you call Wemby a coward for not saying sex, you're a coward for not reading your poem.
you sure?
No, man, this is, as always, I greatly look forward to this. That's a guy who I don't get a ton of sleep these days. My evenings are precious, and still I greatly look forward to this. So, yeah, it just goes to show how truly enjoyable it is hanging out and spending time with you, my friend.
When do you think you hit that spot where you can start like hanging out a decent amount? I imagine it's still kind of hectic over there.
Yeah, I think I think 4. When your youngest kid is like 4 or 5, I think I get my life back a little bit.
Wait, years?
Years old, yeah. Wait, what was your question?
Like I was like, what are we gonna do this summer? Are we hanging out? Like, what's gonna happen?
Oh yeah, when I'm gonna hang out in about 4 or 5 years. Yeah, we can hang out this summer. You want to go to the beach or something?
Yeah, I do.
I'll take my kids.
Yeah, hell yeah. Let's get to
Elliot, everyone's still listening. Elliot loves Samson, and I made him. Elliot's my older son. I made him call Samson Uncle Sam, and I love that joke. Yeah.
for audio listeners. I was doing the Uncle Sam post. For anybody who might not know, Louis, that feels like a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, we're way off the rails.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this sustains people, at least this version of it, like it has the years prior, as just kind of like you could tune into this whenever you please during the off season. There's not too much future casting. It's not determined by anything else. It's just talking about what the season was in a player focused way, which is we are apt to do. Louis, thanks for jumping on. I appreciate it greatly. Listener, thank you for tuning in, and I guess subscribe and like the video, all that stuff. Whether you got into this in the morning or at night, have a blessed day and goodbye.